drift into rest as we explore the gentle, fascinating world of sex facts for sleep. From history and hormones to love, consent, relationships, and even nature's playbook, this calming narration blends education with relaxation. Perfect for bedtime, insomnia relief, and curious minds, let science, intimacy, and evolution guide you into peaceful dreams. Good evening and welcome. As you settle in, remember that this space is calm, quiet, and without judgment. Here, curiosity is allowed to breathe. Tonight begins a new journey, 301 sex facts, shared gently and slowly. The first cluster is not about technique or performance, but about ground rules, consent, safety, kindness, inclusivity, and the ways we learn to respect both ourselves and others. Think of it as the foundation on which everything else rests. Without it, no conversation about intimacy can truly be complete. Fact 1. Consent is the cornerstone of all healthy sexual relationships. Consent is not a single moment, but an ongoing conversation, one that is freely given, enthusiastic, and reversible at any time. It must be clear, informed, and mutual. Asking, "Are you comfortable with this?" or "Do you want to keep going?" may sound simple, but those words carry immense power. They create space for honesty. In a world where pressure and assumption often take over, clear consent is what turns an act into an expression of trust rather than a breach of it. Fact 2. Boundaries are not barriers, but maps. When someone says yes to one experience and no to another, they are drawing the lines that make them feel safe. Respecting those lines does not limit closeness, it deepens it. A partner who listens and honors a limit communicates, "I value you more than my impulse." That affirmation builds security, and when both people know that limits will be respected, they can explore more freely, not less. Fact 3. Consent and boundaries must always be specific. Agreeing to hold hands is not the same as agreeing to kiss. Agreeing to kiss does not equal agreeing to undress. Each stage of intimacy deserves its own check-in. This protects both partners from misunderstandings and reinforces the truth that every choice matters. This principle applies whether someone has been together for a day, a year, or decades. Even long-term couples thrive on explicit consent, because love does not erase the need for clarity. Fact 4. Privacy is a form of respect. When two people share intimacy, it should not be broadcast to others without permission. Sharing messages, photos, or personal details without consent is a violation that can harm reputations, emotional well-being, and trust. In an age of digital sharing, remembering that intimacy is private keeps relationships strong. Healthy sexual wellness means honoring not just what happens in the moment, but also what is kept confidential afterward. Fact 5. Kindness is more attractive than performance. When people speak about great sex, they often mean connection, not choreography. Feeling cared for, valued, and safe allows desire to unfold naturally. A smile, a reassuring word, or a willingness to pause if something feels off. These small gestures of kindness often matter more than skill or experience. Sexual health is emotional health, and treating each other with compassion transforms experiences from mechanical acts into genuine moments of intimacy. Fact 6. Listening to your own body is just as important as listening to a partner. Bodies send signals: comfort, discomfort, curiosity, hesitation. Ignoring those signals in the name of pleasing someone else erodes self-trust. Sexual wellness means paying attention to physical and emotional cues. If your body feels tense, if your mind is distracted, those are signs worth honoring. Rest, communication, or simply waiting for another time are all valid choices. Intimacy is meant to feel safe, not pressured. Fact 7. Inclusivity means recognizing that there is no single normal. People are diverse in sexual orientation, gender identity, physical ability, and life experience. What is natural and joyful for one person may not be the same for another. Respecting this diversity is part of creating a culture of safety. Whether someone identifies as heterosexual, gay, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, or anywhere else on the spectrum, their experiences and boundaries deserve equal respect. Inclusive sexual wellness honors everyone's reality without judgment. Fact 8. Consent is not only verbal, but also non-verbal. Body language matters. Stillness, silence, or tension are not signs of agreement. Clear communication, words, nods, or active participation removes doubt. If you are unsure, pause and ask. This may feel less spontaneous, but it ensures comfort. Spontaneity is only meaningful when both partners are genuinely willing participants. Respect for boundaries never kills romance. It builds trust, and trust is what sustains desire. Fact 9. Safe intimacy involves protecting both physical and emotional health. Physical safety includes contraception, STI prevention, and awareness of reproductive health. Emotional safety includes honesty, transparency, and empathy. A relationship that protects one but neglects the other is incomplete. True safety integrates both, because physical health and emotional well-being are deeply connected. A safe partner is one who values all aspects of your health, not only what is convenient. Fact 10. No is a full sentence. It does not require apology, justification, or negotiation. Pressuring someone after they have declined is not persuasion. It is disrespect. Teaching ourselves to honor no without argument creates a world where boundaries are taken seriously. On the flip side, saying no when you feel uncomfortable is not selfish, it is honest. Intimacy built on honesty, not obligation, is intimacy worth having. Fact 11. Consent must be free from power imbalance. If someone feels they cannot say no without consequence, whether because of fear, authority, or dependency, their agreement is not truly consent. Teachers, bosses, coaches, and anyone in a position of authority must be especially aware of this. Healthy sexuality requires equality in decision-making. When one person holds power over another, genuine choice disappears, and what follows can be harmful, even if it appears consensual on the surface. Fact 12. Safe words and clear signals are not only for niche communities, they are useful for everyone. Creating a shared phrase or gesture that means pause or stop makes exploration safer. It removes ambiguity and creates a safety net. Even couples who never imagined needing one may find that having a simple word like yellow for slow down, red for stop, frees them from doubt. Safety tools are not limitations, they are enablers of deeper trust. Fact 13. Self-education is an act of self-care. Reading accurate resources about anatomy, relationships, and sexual health prevents misinformation. Many myths persist because reliable sex education is often scarce. Learning about contraception, consent, inclusivity, and communication empowers people to make better choices. Education is prevention. Knowledge, even when it feels basic, protects both your health and your relationships. Fact 14. Inclusivity means affirming people with disabilities and chronic illnesses. Too often, conversations about sex erase their experiences, yet sexuality is a human need, not a privilege reserved for the able-bodied. Adaptations, assistive devices, and honest communication make intimacy possible in countless forms. Recognizing that everyone has a right to safe, fulfilling intimacy is part of a compassionate sexual culture. Fact 15. Cultural respect matters. Different communities, faiths, and traditions view intimacy in unique ways. Healthy sexual communication recognizes this diversity without mocking or dismissing it. Partners may come from different cultural backgrounds with different expectations. Listening with respect, not assumption, honors both. Inclusivity does not mean erasing culture. It means weaving it into the conversation with openness. Fact 16. Intoxication complicates consent. Alcohol and drugs impair judgment and reduce the ability to give or recognize genuine agreement. True consent requires a clear mind. This is why many institutions, from universities to workplaces, emphasize that intoxicated people cannot give valid consent. Protecting yourself and others means understanding that impaired states cloud clarity. Better to wait for sobriety than risk harm or regret. Fact 17. Healthy intimacy involves aftercare. After an intimate experience, checking in with a partner, asking, "How are you feeling?" or "Do you need anything?" is a form of emotional safety. Simple gestures like offering water, holding, or giving space help partners process. Aftercare is often associated with specific communities, but in reality, it is universal. It is the practice of caring for one another, not only during, but after, and it strengthens bonds over time. Fact 18. Sex is not a performance. It is a conversation. Movies and media often present intimacy as something to be achieved or mastered. In truth, it is fluid, imperfect, and unique to every pair of people. Performance pressures about appearance, endurance, or frequency undermine connection. The most satisfying intimacy is often quiet, unrushed, and free from comparison. It is about two people listening, adjusting, and choosing together. Seen this way, intimacy becomes less about achievement and more about communication. And so, as this first chapter closes, the foundation is set. Consent, boundaries, privacy, kindness, inclusivity. These are not optional extras, but the bedrock of healthy sexuality. Every fact that follows in the chapters ahead, from anatomy to hormones, from love to culture, rests on these rules. If intimacy is a house, these 18 principles are the ground floor. Without them, the structure cannot stand. With them, the space is safe, welcoming, and filled with possibility. Good evening again, and welcome back to this quiet journey through 301 sex facts. In the first chapter, we built the foundation of consent, respect, and kindness. Tonight, we begin walking through the body itself, exploring anatomy, natural variation, and the remarkable diversity that human beings carry with them. These are not just clinical details, but gentle reminders that bodies come in many forms, and that each one deserves care, acceptance, and respect. This is an approachable tour through what is often called sexual anatomy, though in truth, these are simply parts of the human body that connect to reproduction, intimacy, and identity. Fact 1 is that every body is unique, and there is no single normal size, shape, or pattern. Textbooks may present standardized diagrams, but real human beings show variation in height, weight, skin, hair, muscle, and sexual organs. Some people are born with large features, others with small ones, some symmetrical, others less so. These variations are natural, not flaws. In fact, body diversity is the rule, not the exception. Accepting this is the first step in body positivity and sexual wellness. Fact 2 reminds us that male and female are useful categories, but not the whole story. While many people are born with anatomy that fits neatly into one of these groups, others are intersex, meaning their physical traits, whether chromosomes, hormones, or genital development, do not fit standard definitions. Intersex people have always existed, though for a long time their realities were hidden or misunderstood. Recognizing intersex variation is not only about biology but also about respect, ensuring that every person has the right to understand and define their own body. Fact 3 is that external anatomy tells only part of the story. For example, a penis or vulva may be visible, but internal structures such as ovaries, testes, uterus, or prostate play equally important roles in health and reproduction. These internal organs are often less discussed, yet they shape fertility, hormone production, and sexual response. Understanding both the visible and hidden aspects of anatomy helps people make informed decisions about reproductive health, medical care, and wellness. Fact 4 is that genital size does not predict function, pleasure, or fertility. For decades, myths about too small or too large have caused unnecessary anxiety. The truth, supported by sexual health research, is that there is a wide normal range for both penises and vulvas. These variations do not determine a person's capacity for intimacy, reproduction, or connection. In fact, the human body adapts remarkably well across this spectrum. When it comes to intimacy, communication matters far more than dimensions. Fact 5 highlights the clitoris, a structure often overlooked in past centuries of anatomy textbooks. The clitoris is not only a small visible gland near the vulva, but a complex internal network of erectile tissue with roots that extend inward several centimeters. Its sole biological function is pleasure. Recognizing its importance corrects centuries of omission and acknowledges the diversity of female sexual response. Knowing about the clitoris is part of comprehensive sexual education and empowers people to understand their own bodies. Fact 6 is that the penis, too, is more complex than it appears. Beyond erection and ejaculation, it serves as a pathway for urination. Erectile function depends on blood flow, nerve signaling, and psychological context, not just physical structure. Size, again, is less important than health of the vascular and nervous systems. Erectile dysfunction, for example, is often a sign of cardiovascular or metabolic conditions, reminding us that sexual anatomy is deeply linked to overall wellness. Fact 7 is that breasts vary enormously across people and throughout life. They are made of fat, glandular tissue, and connective fibers, and their size does not predict milk production or sensitivity. Breasts change with puberty, pregnancy, age, and hormonal shifts. Some people develop very small breasts, others very large, and both are normal. Surgery, illness, or transition can alter them further. Body positivity here means recognizing that there is no single standard of attractiveness or function. Fact 8 is that hair distribution on the face, chest, pubic area, or elsewhere is guided largely by hormones, genetics, and culture. Some people grow thick hair, others sparse, and patterns differ across ethnic backgrounds. Pubic hair, for example, serves protective functions, though grooming practices vary with personal and cultural preferences. There is no medically right amount or style of hair. Its variation is another example of how human bodies express individuality. Fact 9 is that vaginas and vulvas vary widely in appearance and structure. Labia may be long or short, symmetrical or asymmetrical, pigmented dark or light. These variations are common and healthy. The internal vagina is a muscular canal that changes in elasticity, lubrication, and sensation across the menstrual cycle and lifespan. Medical research shows that no one appearance is more normal than another. The push for cosmetic uniformity is cultural, not biological. Fact 10. Testicles, like ovaries, are vital reproductive organs with multiple functions. They produce sperm, yes, but also testosterone, the hormone that influences secondary sex characteristics such as muscle mass, voice depth, and facial hair. Testicles vary in size and position, often one hanging lower than the other. This asymmetry is natural and allows comfort during movement. Concerns about size are usually unfounded. What matters most is healthy function and regular self-checks for changes that might signal medical issues. Fact 11 is that the uterus is not simply a baby carrier, but a dynamic organ that responds to hormonal cycles each month. Even for people who never become pregnant, the uterus plays a role in menstrual health, hormone balance, and sometimes sexual sensation. The cervix, at its lower end, connects the uterus to the vagina and shifts in position and openness throughout the cycle. Understanding these changes helps people track fertility, avoid pregnancy, or recognize health conditions. Fact 12 is that ovaries are remarkable multitaskers. They release eggs roughly once per month, but also regulate hormone production, shaping not just fertility, but also mood, bone density, and long-term health. Ovarian reserve declines with age, leading to menopause, a natural life stage rather than an illness. Knowing this helps people plan for family life, manage symptoms, and understand their body's timeline with compassion. Fact 13 is that the prostate, an often misunderstood gland, surrounds the urethra just below the bladder in people assigned male at birth. Its main role is to produce fluid that nourishes and protects sperm. With age, the prostate often enlarges, sometimes leading to urinary symptoms. Awareness of prostate health, through regular checkups, healthy diet, and screening when recommended, is an important part of male sexual wellness and long-term care. Fact 14 is that natural asymmetry is normal. One breast may be slightly larger than the other, one labia longer, one testicle lower, one shoulder higher. Human bodies are not perfectly mirrored, and small differences are part of the design, not signs of disease. Only large or painful asymmetries warrant medical attention. Embracing natural imbalance is part of body positivity, helping people let go of unrealistic expectations of symmetry. Fact 15 is that hormones influence not only internal function, but also appearance. Estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone fluctuate throughout life, influencing fat distribution, skin texture, hair growth, and libido. These changes mean that bodies evolve over time. The teenage body looks different from the midlife body, which looks different again in later years. Each stage carries its own natural variation. Recognizing this prevents shame and helps normalize the changes of age. Fact 16 is that gender-affirming care, such as hormone therapy or surgeries for transgender and non-binary people, demonstrates that anatomy is adaptable. Human bodies can shift in response to medical care, allowing people to align their physical traits with their gender identity. This reality reinforces the idea that anatomy is not destiny. What matters most is a person's health, comfort, and ability to live authentically. Sexual wellness includes affirming these journeys without stigma. Fact 17. The closing truth of this chapter is that self-acceptance is essential for sexual health. Whether someone has scars, asymmetries, disabilities, or differences from cultural ideals, their body is still worthy of care, respect, and love. Research shows that people with positive body image experience greater satisfaction in intimacy, stronger self-esteem, and better overall mental health. Sexual anatomy is not a contest of appearances. It is a living, functional, diverse set of features that deserve celebration. And so this chapter, a gentle walk through bodies, anatomy, and natural variation, draws to a close. We have seen that no two people are alike, that intersex and transgender experiences are real and important, that genitals, breasts, hair, hormones, and organs vary across a wide range of healthy forms. This variety is not an obstacle, but a gift. It means that in every relationship, discovery is unique, and in every life, self-understanding is personal. As the evening continues, and as you let your body settle into the stillness of this moment, we turn to the quiet but powerful currents that run within us. These are the hormones, the chemical messengers of the body, moving through the bloodstream, whispering instructions, shaping growth, mood, fertility, desire, and the unfolding of life from childhood through old age. If anatomy gives us the visible framework, hormones provide the rhythm of change, and their story is one of constant ebb and flow. The first fact is that hormones are part of the endocrine system, a network of glands such as the pituitary, thyroid, adrenals, testes, and ovaries. These glands release chemicals that travel everywhere in the body, affecting not only reproductive health, but also metabolism, energy, sleep, and even how emotions rise and fall. Unlike nerves, which transmit messages in fractions of a second, hormones operate more slowly, carrying signals that last minutes, hours, or even years, gradually reshaping the landscape of the body. The second fact is that puberty is the body's first great surge of sexual hormones. In people assigned female at birth, estrogen and progesterone rise, guiding breast development, menstruation, and fat distribution to hips and thighs. In people assigned male at birth, testosterone increases, deepening the voice, enlarging the testes, and stimulating muscle growth. But puberty is not identical for everyone. Timing varies, with some entering as early as 8 or 9, and others not until the mid-teens. Genetics, nutrition, and environment all play roles. This wide range is normal, reminding us that development does not happen on a fixed schedule. The third fact is that adolescence brings not only physical change, but also emotional shifts influenced by hormones. Dopamine, the chemical linked to reward and motivation, fluctuates, which is why risk-taking and novelty become so tempting. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, plays a role in how teenagers form friendships and early romances. These shifts can feel overwhelming, but they are part of the natural process of rewiring the brain for adulthood. Sexual wellness at this stage means patience, guidance, and reassurance that these feelings are not strange, but expected. The fourth fact is that fertility cycles are guided by delicate hormonal patterns. In people with ovaries, estrogen rises in the first half of the cycle, thickening the uterine lining and triggering ovulation when an egg is released. Progesterone then dominates, preparing the body for a possible pregnancy. If fertilization does not occur, hormone levels drop, leading to menstruation. This monthly rhythm can influence energy, mood, and desire. Recognizing these patterns allows people to understand their bodies, track fertility, and respond with compassion when moods or comfort levels shift across the month. The fifth fact is that testosterone is not only a male hormone. While levels are higher in those assigned male at birth, testosterone is also present in people assigned female, contributing to libido, bone strength, and muscle tone. Similarly, estrogen exists in all bodies, influencing heart health and brain function. Labeling hormones as male or female oversimplifies a system that is shared by everyone. Balance matters more than categories, and disruptions in that balance can affect well-being across sexes. The sixth fact is that pregnancy transforms hormone levels more dramatically than almost any other stage of life. Estrogen and progesterone rise to sustain the pregnancy, relax smooth muscles, and prepare the breasts for lactation. Human chorionic gonadotropin, or HCG, surges early on and is the hormone detected in pregnancy tests. Oxytocin later supports uterine contractions and plays a role in the deep attachment many parents feel toward their newborns. These hormones protect both parent and baby, though they can also create fatigue, mood swings, and nausea. Far from being signs of weakness, these changes reflect the immense work the body is doing to sustain new life. The seventh fact is that the postpartum period is one of the steepest hormonal transitions a body can experience. After birth, estrogen and progesterone drop sharply, while prolactin rises to support milk production. Oxytocin flows with breastfeeding, strengthening the bond between parent and infant. Yet this hormonal cocktail can also leave new parents vulnerable to postpartum blues or postpartum depression. Understanding that these shifts are biological helps reduce stigma, while support, rest, and medical care can restore balance. Sexual wellness here means patience and empathy, recognizing that recovery is as important as birth itself. The eighth fact is that perimenopause, the years leading up to menopause, is not a sudden switch, but a gradual change. Estrogen and progesterone levels fluctuate unpredictably, sometimes rising, sometimes dropping, leading to irregular cycles, hot flashes, and sleep disturbances. This stage often begins in the 40s, though it varies widely. Far from being a decline, perimenopause is a natural transition, and many cultures view it as a passage into wisdom. With the right knowledge and health care, symptoms can be managed, and sexual health can remain strong. The ninth fact is that menopause itself is defined as 12 consecutive months without a menstrual period, usually occurring between ages 45 and 55. Estrogen levels stabilize at a lower baseline, no longer driving ovulation or monthly bleeding. While fertility ends, life does not lose vitality. In fact, many people find freedom in this stage, freedom from contraception, cycles, or reproductive expectations. Vaginal dryness, changes in desire, and shifts in mood may occur, but they are not universal and can be supported with medical guidance and self-care. Menopause is not an end, but a new chapter in the hormonal lifespan. The 10th fact is that andropause, sometimes called late-onset hypogonadism, is the male counterpart to menopause, though it is less abrupt. Testosterone gradually declines beginning in midlife, about 1% per year after the age of 30. For some, this results in fatigue, reduced muscle mass, lower libido, or mood changes. For others, the changes are minimal. Unlike menopause, andropause is not universal or sudden. Still, awareness of this decline allows men to seek support through exercise, diet, mental health care, or medical treatment if necessary. The 11th fact is that stress profoundly alters hormones at any age. Cortisol, the stress hormone, competes with reproductive hormones, sometimes suppressing ovulation, lowering testosterone, or disrupting cycles. Chronic stress can reduce fertility and dampen desire. Learning stress management through sleep, mindfulness, exercise, or therapy protects sexual health just as much as physical safety measures do. The body cannot separate emotional stress from hormonal balance. They are intertwined. The 12th fact is that thyroid hormones, often overlooked in conversations about sex, play an important role in energy, mood, and reproductive health. Both underactive and overactive thyroids can disrupt menstrual cycles, libido, and even fertility. Simple blood tests can reveal imbalances, and treatment can restore harmony. This connection is a reminder that sexual wellness is whole-body wellness, not confined to a single system. The 13th fact is that hormones shape bonding and intimacy. Oxytocin, released during hugging, kissing, or sexual activity, deepens emotional connection and builds trust. Dopamine reinforces pleasure, making partners associate closeness with reward. Even vasopressin, a hormone less often mentioned, influences long-term pair bonding. These chemicals remind us that intimacy is not only mechanical, but profoundly emotional. When people speak of chemistry in a relationship, they may be describing literal biochemistry. The 14th fact is that contraceptives, whether hormonal birth control pills, patches, injections, or intrauterine devices, influence natural cycles by adjusting estrogen and progesterone levels. These methods can prevent ovulation, regulate bleeding, reduce acne, or ease menstrual cramps. They demonstrate humanity's ability to gently redirect hormones to meet personal goals. At the same time, not every body responds the same way, and finding the right method may require patience and consultation. The 15th fact is that aging influences hormones beyond sex hormones. Growth hormone, melatonin, and insulin all shift over decades, changing how bodies store fat, build muscle, and process energy. These shifts affect sexuality indirectly, altering stamina, sleep, and mood. Recognizing that hormones operate as a network, not as isolated players, helps people understand why changes in one area ripple outward to others. The 16th fact is that diet, exercise, and lifestyle profoundly influence hormonal health. Regular activity helps maintain testosterone and estrogen balance, reduces insulin resistance, and stabilizes cortisol. Nutritious food provides the building blocks for hormones, many of which are made from cholesterol or amino acids. Sleep allows growth hormone and melatonin to do their work. These daily choices give people more influence over hormones than they often realize. The 17th fact, the closing truth of this chapter, is that hormones are not enemies or invaders. They are storytellers, marking the stages of life. From the rush of puberty to the steadiness of midlife, from the surges of pregnancy to the quiet recalibration of menopause and andropause, hormones narrate the journey. Sometimes they bring intensity, sometimes calm, sometimes challenge, sometimes relief. But in all cases, they are part of the design of human beings. Accepting their rhythms means accepting ourselves. And so, as this chapter closes, remember that hormones are not just invisible chemicals. They are the quiet architects of change, guiding the body from childhood into adulthood, through fertility and beyond, through transitions that may bring both difficulty and wisdom. They do not tell us who we are, but they do remind us that our bodies are living, changing systems, worthy of care at every stage of life. The first fact is that desire, the spark that begins the cycle, does not appear out of nowhere. It is shaped by hormones like testosterone and estrogen, by neurotransmitters such as dopamine, and by the context of a relationship. Desire may come suddenly for some and more slowly for others. It may feel like mental anticipation, physical readiness, or a blend of both. Some people experience spontaneous desire, while others feel what researchers call responsive desire, which emerges after intimacy begins. Both are natural, and both count as healthy patterns. The second fact is that arousal is not only mental, but physical. As desire rises, blood flow increases to sexual organs, breathing deepens, and heart rate quickens. In people with penises, this may mean erection, while in people with vulvas, this may mean swelling and lubrication. Yet arousal is not confined to genitals. Skin becomes more sensitive, pupils dilate, and muscles may tense. Arousal is a whole-body experience, not just a localized event. This is why intimacy can feel different depending on mood, stress level, or physical health. The third fact is that arousal is closely tied to the brain's reward pathways. Dopamine, the same chemical that motivates us to eat, learn, and seek novelty, also fuels sexual excitement. This is why arousal can feel thrilling or energizing. The brain interprets intimacy as rewarding, reinforcing bonds and encouraging closeness. This connection shows that arousal is as much about psychology as physiology, with the mind and body moving together. The fourth fact is that the plateau phase is often misunderstood. It is not a pause, but an intensification. During plateau, arousal steadies and builds, sometimes lasting only seconds, sometimes minutes. Breathing may quicken further, muscles tighten, and sensitivity heightens. This phase is where anticipation grows strongest, and for some people it is the most pleasurable stage. It reveals that intimacy is not only about reaching a goal, but about savoring the journey. The fifth fact is that orgasm, though often treated as the climax of the cycle, is not universal, nor is it required for sexual satisfaction. An orgasm involves rhythmic contractions of muscles, sudden release of tension, and a surge of chemicals like oxytocin and endorphins. But many people find fulfillment in intimacy without orgasm, and some may not experience it at all. Studies show that satisfaction is more strongly linked to emotional connection, communication, and comfort than to reaching orgasm every time. The sixth fact is that orgasms vary widely between people. Some describe them as intense and brief, others as slower waves, others as multiple smaller peaks. In people with vulvas, orgasms may come from clitoral, vaginal, or blended stimulation, each feeling distinct. In people with penises, orgasm and ejaculation often coincide, but not always. The diversity of orgasm shows that there is no single definition of the experience. Comparing oneself to others can create unnecessary pressure. Recognizing variation brings relief and self-acceptance. The seventh fact is that resolution, the final stage, is the body's way of returning to calm. After orgasm, heart rate slows, blood pressure decreases, and muscles relax. People often feel sleepy, serene, or emotionally close. This stage is supported by the release of prolactin and serotonin, chemicals that bring calm and satiety. In people with penises, a refractory period typically follows, a time when arousal cannot immediately return. In people with vulvas, the refractory period may be short or absent, allowing repeated cycles if desired. Again, variation is natural. The eighth fact is that intimacy is not a straight line through these stages. People may move forward, pause, or circle back. Arousal can fade and return, plateau may stretch or vanish, orgasm may or may not occur. The cycle is a model, not a law. It helps describe what often happens, but real life is flexible. This fluidity is important to remember because expectations of a perfect sequence can lead to anxiety or disappointment. Healthy intimacy allows for detours and embraces the body's natural rhythm. The ninth fact is that context strongly shapes the cycle. Stress, distraction, illness, or fatigue can interrupt desire and arousal. Safety, trust, and emotional connection enhance them. For some, newness sparks excitement, while for others, familiarity deepens comfort. These differences show that arousal is not just about biology, but also about psychology and environment. A warm, respectful atmosphere can make the same body respond very differently than a stressful or unsafe one. The 10th fact is that gender does not dictate experience. While research often separates male and female responses, studies now recognize enormous overlap. Some men experience difficulty with desire, some women experience rapid arousal, and patterns vary across orientation, culture, and health. The sexual response cycle belongs to everyone, and inclusivity means recognizing that bodies do not fit neatly into binary scripts. Intersex and transgender individuals may experience unique patterns, further showing that variation is universal. The 11th fact is that hormones continue to shape the cycle beyond puberty. Estrogen and testosterone influence desire. Oxytocin reinforces bonding, and endorphins soften pain and increase pleasure. These chemicals change with age, pregnancy, menopause, or andropause, making the sexual response cycle feel different at different stages of life. What excites someone at 20 may not be identical at 50, but change does not mean decline, it means evolution. The 12th fact is that intimacy involves both the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. The sympathetic system, which also drives the fight-or-flight response, is responsible for increased heart rate, blood flow, and readiness. The parasympathetic system, associated with rest and relaxation, supports erection, lubrication, and orgasm. This balance explains why anxiety can disrupt arousal. The nervous system cannot fully relax while also preparing for danger. Calm, trust, and patience allow the parasympathetic system to guide the body toward intimacy. The 13th fact is that arousal differences between people are influenced by what researchers call accelerators and brakes. The accelerator system turns desire on in response to stimuli, while the brake system turns desire off in response to stress, shame, or distraction. Some people have sensitive accelerators and weaker brakes, leading to quick arousal. Others have stronger brakes and need more trust or safety before arousal builds. Both patterns are normal, and learning one's own balance helps partners communicate better. The 14th fact is that arousal is not only physical, but also imaginative. Fantasies, memories, and thoughts can spark desire even without physical touch. The brain itself is the largest sexual organ, and imagination often shapes the entire cycle. What a person envisions, anticipates, or dreams can have real effects on heart rate, hormones, and arousal. Recognizing this highlights the role of mental intimacy, storytelling, and communication in healthy sexual relationships. The 15th fact is that sexual response can be influenced by health conditions or medications. Antidepressants, blood pressure drugs, diabetes, or chronic illness may affect desire, arousal, or orgasm. This does not mean intimacy disappears, but that adaptation and patience are needed. Medical professionals can help adjust treatments, and partners can support one another through understanding. Recognizing this prevents self-blame and encourages a holistic view of sexual health. The 16th fact is that emotional closeness enhances the cycle. Research shows that people who feel respected, valued, and safe with their partners report more satisfying intimacy. Oxytocin released during hugging, touching, or kissing strengthens trust and makes arousal more likely. This confirms what many intuitively know. Emotional intimacy and physical intimacy are intertwined. The sexual response cycle is not only about bodies, but also about bonds. The 17th fact, the closing truth of this chapter, is that pleasure and satisfaction are not defined by any one stage. Some find fulfillment in desire, others in arousal, others in resolution. For many, the journey itself, communication, closeness, shared exploration, is more meaningful than any single outcome. Understanding this frees people from narrow definitions of success. It allows intimacy to be about connection, not performance. The sexual response cycle is a guide, but it bends to each person's experience. And so this chapter closes gently, with the reminder that the body's rhythms of desire, arousal, plateau, orgasm, and resolution are not rigid steps, but a flowing dance between mind, body, and relationship. They are guided by hormones, shaped by emotions, altered by health, and unique to every individual. To learn them is not to master them, but to respect them. And in that respect lies the foundation of sexual wellness. The first fact is that desire is closely tied to neurotransmitters, the chemicals that send signals between brain cells. Dopamine is the star of this story, fueling motivation, excitement, and the thrill of reward. When dopamine is released in the brain, activities feel worth pursuing, and intimacy becomes part of that pursuit. Serotonin balances this system, influencing mood and contentment, while oxytocin strengthens feelings of trust and bonding. These chemicals are not abstract. They are the fuel that makes desire rise and sometimes fade. The second fact is that stress is one of the most powerful dampeners of sexual desire. When the body is flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone, energy is diverted toward survival responses rather than reproduction or intimacy. A busy work week, financial worries, or ongoing conflict can all push the body into vigilance, leaving little space for arousal. This is not a weakness, but a protective system designed to keep humans alert in times of danger. Unfortunately, modern stressors keep that system running longer than it was meant to, crowding out the calmer states where desire flourishes. The third fact is that relaxation is not only pleasant, but essential for sexual wellness. When the nervous system is able to shift into its calmer parasympathetic mode, arousal becomes possible. This is why practices like deep breathing, meditation, or even something as simple as a warm bath can make intimacy more inviting. The brain cannot easily hold anxiety and desire at the same time. Soothing the mind creates space for connection to emerge. The fourth fact is that sleep plays a major role in libido. Research shows that inadequate sleep reduces testosterone, alters estrogen balance, and interferes with dopamine signaling. People who sleep poorly often report lower sexual interest and less energy for intimacy. Conversely, well-rested individuals experience more consistent desire and satisfaction. Sleep is not just recovery for the body. It is a foundation for mental health and sexual vitality. The fifth fact is that mood disorders such as depression and anxiety strongly affect the psychology of desire. Depression can reduce dopamine and serotonin activity, leading to low motivation and diminished pleasure. Anxiety, on the other hand, keeps the brain in a state of hyper-alertness, which conflicts with the relaxation needed for arousal. Recognizing these links is important because it shows that changes in desire are not moral failings, but symptoms of mental health conditions that deserve care. The sixth fact is that medication can alter sexual response in significant ways. Antidepressants, particularly SSRIs, that boost serotonin, often suppress libido or delay orgasm. Blood pressure medications, antipsychotics, and even some allergy drugs can have similar effects. This does not mean intimacy is lost forever, but it may require open communication with healthcare providers to adjust treatments or explore alternatives. Understanding that medications can shape desire prevents self-blame and encourages proactive solutions. The seventh fact is that confidence and body image influence the brain's readiness for desire. When someone feels comfortable in their skin, dopamine and oxytocin can work freely to enhance intimacy. When body image is clouded by shame or self-criticism, stress responses may interfere. Sexual wellness includes practicing self-acceptance, celebrating natural variation, and recognizing that connection does not require perfection. Confidence, not conformity, is what fuels attraction and responsiveness. The eighth fact is that desire is shaped by personal history and learned associations. Positive early experiences, respectful partners, and supportive environments reinforce healthy desire, while negative experiences such as trauma or rejection can inhibit it. The brain remembers patterns, sometimes holding on to protective responses long after the threat is gone. Therapy, patience, and compassionate partners can help reshape those patterns, allowing desire to re-emerge in safe spaces. The ninth fact is that context strongly influences sexual psychology. The same individual may feel deeply responsive in a loving, supportive environment, but disengaged in a tense or unsafe one. The brain scans constantly for safety cues, and intimacy thrives only when those cues are present. Lighting, comfort, privacy, and emotional warmth all play subtle but powerful roles in whether desire feels welcome. This explains why intimacy is often easier on a calm evening than during stressful daytime obligations. The 10th fact is that desire differs between spontaneous and responsive patterns. Some people feel desire as an initial spark, motivating them to seek intimacy actively. Others feel it build gradually once closeness begins. Neither is more correct. Both are valid forms of sexual response. Understanding this distinction can ease misunderstandings between partners and prevent the myth that only immediate or fiery desire is authentic. The brain simply works in diverse ways. The 11th fact is that novelty can increase desire by activating dopamine circuits in the brain. New experiences, settings, or even small variations in routine can refresh the sense of excitement. This is not about dramatic change, but about reminding the brain that intimacy remains rewarding and alive. Novelty is a psychological boost, and when paired with respect and communication, it can reignite connections that feel dulled by repetition. The 12th fact is that long-term relationships often experience natural shifts in desire over time. Early stages of romance are fueled by surges of dopamine and norepinephrine, creating a sense of euphoria. As relationships mature, these chemicals settle, and oxytocin and vasopressin take stronger roles, fostering stability and bonding. This shift is not a loss, but a transformation. Passion may change texture, but it deepens into companionship, where emotional security supports steady intimacy. The 13th fact is that cultural and psychological expectations shape desire just as much as biology. Messages about gender roles, attractiveness, or performance can create pressure that interrupts natural arousal. When the brain is preoccupied with comparison or worry, desire struggles to surface. Education, inclusivity, and body positivity help remove these barriers, allowing the brain to respond more authentically to real connection rather than to external judgments. The 14th fact is that mental focus, or mindfulness, enhances sexual wellness by quieting distractions. Research shows that people who practice mindfulness report greater satisfaction because they are present in their bodies rather than caught in self-criticism or wandering thoughts. The brain can only attend to so much at once. When attention rests gently on the moment, desire has room to grow. The 15th fact is that intimacy itself can improve mental health. Regular closeness releases oxytocin, reduces stress hormones, and boosts mood. These effects are not only pleasurable, but protective, supporting emotional resilience. The link works both ways. Mental health shapes desire, and desire, when nurtured, strengthens mental health. Recognizing this loop helps people see intimacy as part of overall well-being, rather than a separate or frivolous activity. The 16th fact is that personality differences influence desire. Some people are more sensation-seeking, others more cautious. Some thrive on spontaneity, others on stability. The brain's wiring, shaped by genetics and life experience, creates these patterns. Rather than forcing one style, partners thrive when they recognize and adapt to each other's psychology. In this way, intimacy becomes a cooperative dance rather than a struggle of mismatched expectations. The 17th fact, the closing truth of this chapter, is that desire is not a test of worth. It fluctuates with stress, sleep, health, and countless psychological factors. There are times when it rises effortlessly, and times when it feels absent. Both are normal. The brain is a living, changing system, and its patterns of intimacy evolve with life circumstances. Accepting this variability frees people from the myth of constant readiness and allows them to see desire as something to be nurtured gently, like a flame that can flicker but never truly disappears. And so, as this chapter settles, remember that the brain is the central stage for desire. It is shaped by neurotransmitters, molded by stress and sleep, influenced by medication and mood, and sustained by confidence, safety, and connection. Every flicker of arousal, every moment of intimacy, is a dialogue between psychology and physiology. To understand this is to treat oneself and one's partners with patience and compassion, recognizing that sexual wellness is inseparable from mental wellness. Desire lives in the mind as much as in the body, and both deserve respect. Bodies may carry the marks of anatomy, hormones may shape desire, but the way people connect, who they are drawn to, how they describe themselves, and the words they choose for their lives, rests on something deeper. This chapter is not about telling anyone what they should feel or how they should love, but about respecting the many ways people do. Attraction, orientation, and identity are not fixed rules, but gentle landscapes, shifting and diverse, and every individual has the right to describe their own path. The first fact is that sexual orientation is not a choice in the way fashion or hobbies are choices. It is a natural part of who a person is, influenced by biology, environment, and psychology in complex ways. Some people feel attracted to the opposite sex, some to the same sex, some to more than one gender, and some to none at all. Each of these experiences is valid. The American Psychological Association and countless studies affirm that orientation is not something that needs to be changed, corrected, or cured. It is simply an expression of human diversity. The second fact is that attraction comes in more than one form. Sexual attraction is physical desire, while romantic attraction is about love, affection, and companionship. They may overlap, but they do not always align. A person might feel strong romantic attraction without sexual attraction, or sexual attraction without romance. Understanding these distinctions helps people better describe their own experiences and prevents the false assumption that attraction is one single phenomenon. The third fact is that heterosexuality, attraction between men and women, is only one part of the spectrum. Homosexuality, attraction to the same gender, has existed in every culture and every era of human history. Evidence from literature, art, and anthropology shows that same-sex relationships are not modern inventions, but timeless patterns of human connection. Recognizing this dispels the myth of normal versus abnormal orientations. Each orientation is part of the shared human story. The fourth fact is that bisexuality, attraction to more than one gender, is real, valid, and not simply confusion or a temporary phase. Research confirms that bisexual people experience stable patterns of attraction, though the proportions of attraction to different genders may shift over time. Dismissing bisexuality erases millions of people's lived realities. Embracing it means acknowledging that attraction is sometimes more expansive than a binary choice. The fifth fact is that pansexuality, an orientation in which people may be attracted regardless of gender, emphasizes the idea that gender is not the defining factor in attraction. While similar to bisexuality, pansexuality specifically highlights inclusivity across the gender spectrum, including non-binary and gender-fluid individuals. This orientation challenges the assumption that attraction must always be anchored to gender categories, reminding us that for some people, connection is about personality, energy, and emotional resonance rather than gender identity. The sixth fact is that asexuality is another valid orientation, in which people experience little or no sexual attraction. Asexual people may still desire companionship, romance, or intimacy, but not necessarily sexual activity. Some identify as aromantic as well, while others enjoy romance without sexual attraction. Asexuality is not a disorder or a deficiency. It is simply another natural variation, and people who are asexual can live fulfilling, connected, and happy lives without needing to conform to external expectations. The seventh fact is that demisexuality highlights the role of emotional bonds. Demisexual individuals experience sexual attraction only when they feel a deep emotional connection. This shows how orientation can be nuanced, existing on a spectrum between asexuality and other forms of attraction. Demisexuality underscores the reality that for many, intimacy is rooted in trust, familiarity, and emotional safety, rather than appearance alone. The eighth fact is that orientation can be fluid across time. Some people identify one way in youth and another way later in life. For others, attraction feels stable and unchanging. Neither path is wrong. Human sexuality is dynamic, and identity can evolve as people grow, explore, or gain new language to describe themselves. Respecting fluidity means accepting that people are the best narrators of their own experiences, even if those experiences shift. The ninth fact is that gender identity, while related to orientation, is not the same thing. Orientation describes who one is attracted to, while gender identity describes one's own internal sense of being male, female, both, neither, or somewhere along the spectrum. A transgender woman may be attracted to men, women, or any gender, just as a cisgender man may be attracted in diverse ways. Keeping these categories distinct helps avoid confusion and affirms the experiences of transgender and non-binary people. The 10th fact is that being transgender, non-binary, or gender fluid is not a trend, but a natural variation of human identity. Medical and psychological consensus affirms that gender identity is deeply ingrained, not superficial. For some, identity aligns with the sex assigned at birth. For others, it does not. Respecting names, pronouns, and chosen identities is not only an act of kindness, but also an acknowledgement of dignity and truth. The 11th fact is that intersex people who are born with variations in sex characteristics such as chromosomes, hormones, or genital development also challenge binary categories. Intersex conditions occur in roughly 1 in 2,000 births, making them far more common than many realize. Some intersex individuals identify with the gender assigned at birth, while others do not. Recognizing their existence broadens our understanding of identity and confirms that biology itself is diverse. The 12th fact is that identity is deeply tied to self-description. Words like gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, queer, non-binary, transgender, or asexual carry both personal and cultural meaning. Some embrace labels, finding community and strength. Others prefer no labels at all, choosing to simply live as themselves. What matters most is respect, allowing each person to choose how they name or do not name their own experience. The 13th fact is that attraction is shaped not only by gender, but also by culture, personality, and values. People may feel drawn to kindness, humor, confidence, or creativity as much as to physical traits. Brain imaging studies show that attraction activates reward centers, not just for appearance, but for traits associated with safety and compatibility. This reveals why love often feels mysterious. It is a blend of biology and psychology, surface and depth, appearance and essence. The 14th fact is that orientation is not something to be fixed. Efforts to change someone's orientation through so-called conversion therapies have been widely discredited and condemned by medical and mental health organizations worldwide. These practices cause harm, increase rates of depression and anxiety, and do not alter orientation. Affirming and supporting individuals in their true orientation is the path to healthier, happier lives. The 15th fact is that attraction exists across cultures, but the way it is expressed varies. Some societies have long celebrated same-sex love or gender fluidity, while others have imposed restrictions. Historical records show evidence of diverse orientations in ancient Greece, medieval Japan, indigenous North America, and beyond. This demonstrates that attraction and identity are human constants, not passing fashions, though the words and norms around them may change. The 16th fact is that acceptance and inclusivity improve mental health outcomes for LGBTQ+ individuals. Studies consistently show that people who feel affirmed in their orientation and identity experience lower rates of depression, anxiety, and self-harm. Families, communities, and institutions that practice acceptance create environments where people can thrive. Inclusivity is not just a moral choice, but a matter of health and survival. The 17th fact, the closing truth of this chapter, is that attraction and identity are deeply personal, yet also universal. Every person longs to be seen, understood, and respected for who they are. Orientation and identity are the language of that longing. They may shift, they may vary, they may defy easy categories, but they always deserve recognition. To respect how someone self-describes is to affirm their humanity. And so this chapter ends with a quiet reflection. Attraction is more than biology, orientation more than labels, and identity more than a checkbox. These are the threads that weave individuality and community together. They remind us that diversity is not an exception, but the rule of human life. Every self-description is a truth worth honoring, and every person's way of loving and being deserves dignity. Scientists, poets, and philosophers alike have tried to define love. Yet what often matters most is how it feels in the everyday moments. A glance that reassures, a word that heals, a habit of kindness that builds connection over time. Love is both emotional and biological, with roots in brain chemistry and wings in imagination. To explore its dynamics is to explore what makes relationships thrive or falter. The first fact is that attachment styles, formed in early childhood, strongly influence adult relationships. Secure attachment arises when caregivers are consistently responsive and loving, teaching children that the world is safe and that closeness is reliable. These children grow into adults who are comfortable with intimacy and trust. Anxious attachment develops when care is inconsistent, leaving a person worried about abandonment and eager for reassurance. Avoidant attachment emerges when caregivers are distant or unresponsive, leading individuals to downplay closeness and rely heavily on themselves. These patterns are not destiny, but they shape how people give and receive love, and they often reappear in adult intimacy until consciously recognized and gently reshaped. The second fact is that secure attachment predicts the healthiest relationship dynamics. Partners with secure attachment styles tend to communicate openly, resolve conflicts more calmly, and show empathy during disagreements. They are more likely to trust that their partner's love is steady, reducing the need for constant proof. This does not mean their relationships are without problems, but rather that they navigate difficulties with a foundation of reassurance. Security in love creates a safe base from which intimacy can grow. The third fact is that anxious attachment, while challenging, can be transformed through awareness and care. People with this style often fear being abandoned or unloved, leading them to seek frequent validation. In relationships, this may feel overwhelming to partners, but it comes from a deep longing for stability. When met with patience, communication, and consistent reassurance, anxious partners can learn to trust more deeply. Love has the power to heal attachment wounds, not instantly, but over time. The fourth fact is that avoidant attachment, which resists closeness to prevent vulnerability, also softens when met with understanding. People with avoidant styles may prioritize independence to such an extent that intimacy feels threatening. Yet research shows that with supportive partners, therapy, and self-reflection, avoidant individuals can gradually open themselves to connection. Love challenges the illusion of total independence, teaching that closeness is not a trap, but a comfort. The fifth fact is that trust is the central pillar of long-term intimacy. Without trust, attraction and desire wither under suspicion and fear. Trust is built not in grand gestures, but in small, repeated moments, showing up on time, keeping promises, listening without judgment, being honest even when it is difficult. The brain responds to trustworthy behavior by releasing oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which strengthens the sense of safety. Trust, like a muscle, grows through use. The sixth fact is that novelty refreshes love by awakening dopamine, the neurotransmitter of reward and excitement. Over time, long-term relationships can feel predictable, which stabilizes attachment but reduces thrill. Introducing small changes, trying a new activity together, exploring new places, or simply breaking routine, stimulates dopamine release and brings back the sense of discovery. Novelty is not about constant change, but about reminding the brain that partnership can still feel alive. The seventh fact is that long-term intimacy depends on the balance between passion and companionship. Psychologist Robert Sternberg's triangular theory of love describes three components: passion, intimacy, and commitment. Early in relationships, passion often dominates, but over years, intimacy and commitment take the lead. The healthiest relationships find ways to keep passion alive while deepening companionship. This balance allows love to evolve rather than fade. The eighth fact is that everyday care, more than dramatic gestures, fuels closeness. Bringing a partner a cup of tea, remembering their preferences, listening attentively, or expressing gratitude may seem small, yet these actions accumulate into powerful demonstrations of love. Relationship researcher John Gottman calls them bids for connection, tiny invitations for emotional intimacy. Couples who respond to these bids with kindness tend to stay together longer and feel happier. The ninth fact is that conflict is not the enemy of love. Unresolved or destructive conflict is. Every couple disagrees, but how they disagree determines the health of the relationship. Gottman's studies found that successful couples maintain a ratio of about 5 positive interactions for every negative one, even during arguments. They use humor, reassurance, or affection to soften conflict. This pattern shows that disagreements can coexist with love if handled with care. The 10th fact is that love shapes the brain, just as the brain shapes love. fMRI scans show that when people think about their partners, regions associated with reward, motivation, and stress reduction activate. Love literally calms anxiety, lowers blood pressure, and reduces pain perception. These effects mirror the physiological benefits of meditation or deep relaxation, highlighting that intimacy is not only emotional, but also profoundly physical in its health effects. The 11th fact is that attachment and love are not static. They shift with life's stages. In early romance, dopamine and norepinephrine flood the brain, creating excitement and intensity. Over time, oxytocin and vasopressin strengthen, bringing stability and bonding. During parenting, attachment may expand to include children. Later in life, companionship and shared history become the strongest anchors. Each stage carries a different emotional flavor, and understanding this helps couples adjust expectations rather than mourn natural changes. The 12th fact is that sexual intimacy and emotional intimacy reinforce each other, but are not identical. Couples can experience strong emotional closeness without frequent sex, or active sexual connection without deep emotional bonds. The most fulfilling relationships often combine both, but the balance varies. Respecting each partner's needs and preferences allows love to adapt without forcing unrealistic standards. The 13th fact is that relationships thrive on communication that is open but gentle. Saying what one needs, listening without defensiveness, and checking in regularly prevent resentments from building. The psychology of desire and attachment shows that partners who express themselves honestly but kindly experience greater satisfaction. Communication, more than compatibility, predicts long-term success. The 14th fact is that love often benefits from rituals, shared routines that create stability. Whether it is a weekly walk, a bedtime routine, or an anniversary tradition, these patterns become anchors of connection. Rituals reassure the brain, providing predictability in a world of change, and they build a sense of shared identity. Couples who practice rituals often report stronger bonds and resilience during stress. The 15th fact is that relationships must weather external pressures as well as internal ones. Stress from work, family obligations, health, or finances can strain attachment if not managed together. Couples who treat external stress as a joint problem rather than an individual burden tend to fare better. Facing the world as a team reinforces the sense of we, which strengthens trust and connection. The 16th fact is that long-term love requires adaptability. Attraction, desire, and attachment may ebb and flow over decades. Partners who accept change rather than fight it find deeper fulfillment. They recognize that passion may mellow but companionship grows, that novelty may fade but trust strengthens. Adaptability is not resignation. It is resilience, allowing relationships to thrive across shifting landscapes. The 17th fact, the closing truth of this chapter, is that love is built not on perfection but on consistency. Secure attachment, trust, novelty, communication, rituals, and adaptability are the quiet bricks laid day by day. When relationships falter, it is often because these daily practices are neglected, not because love disappears. When relationships thrive, it is because couples tend to the small details, cultivating respect, kindness, and connection. Love is less a firework than a hearth, glowing steadily through the seasons when carefully tended. And so this chapter rests with the reminder that love is not only a feeling, but also a practice. Attachment styles shape it, trust sustains it, novelty refreshes it, and everyday care deepens it. The brain responds to love with health and calm, while the heart responds with meaning and joy. In the end, relationship dynamics are not mysterious rules, but gentle rhythms, available to anyone willing to nurture them. As the rhythm of this journey continues, attention now turns to something that may be quieter than hormones or attraction, but is just as powerful. Love and intimacy are sustained not only by biology and desire, but by words, gestures, and respect. Communication, consent in practice, and the tender rituals of aftercare are the invisible architecture of healthy intimacy. Without them, relationships become fragile. With them, they become strong, safe, and nurturing. The first fact is that consent is not a one-time checkbox, but a continuous conversation. It is about asking, listening, and checking in at every stage. Healthy consent requires enthusiasm, clarity, and mutual agreement. When both people know they can freely say yes or no, intimacy becomes safer and more satisfying. Consent is not a hurdle. It is the very foundation of trust. The second fact is that asking for consent can be simple and natural. Phrasing such as, "Would you like this?" or "How does this feel?" turns intimacy into collaboration. These questions may seem small, but they signal care and attentiveness. Studies on relationship dynamics show that partners who ask and listen report greater satisfaction, because communication removes uncertainty and builds comfort. The third fact is that consent must be free from pressure. A yes that comes from guilt, fear, or obligation is not a real yes. Psychological research emphasizes that authentic consent requires an environment where refusal is genuinely respected. This creates safety, allowing people to participate willingly instead of reluctantly. True intimacy can only exist when choice is honored. The fourth fact is that consent is reversible. Saying yes once does not mean saying yes forever. Anyone has the right to change their mind at any time, whether in the middle of a conversation or in the middle of intimacy. Respecting this shift is not rejection, but recognition that people's comfort can change moment by moment. Healthy relationships adapt gracefully to these changes without judgment. The fifth fact is that communication around consent benefits from clarity. Ambiguity often leads to misunderstandings. Clear words, yes, no, maybe, are easier to interpret than vague signals. While body language can reinforce words, it should not replace them. Verbal communication reduces assumptions and makes intentions unmistakable. This is why educators stress the importance of asking directly and listening carefully. The sixth fact is that saying no is not unkind. It is a form of honesty that protects both partners. Many people fear that refusal will cause disappointment or harm, but in reality, clear boundaries prevent resentment. A respectful no ensures that when someone does say yes, it is wholehearted. Boundaries are not walls against love. They are the structures that keep love safe. The seventh fact is that consent also includes the word maybe. Sometimes people are uncertain, not ready to commit to a yes or a no. Maybe allows space for thought and exploration without pressure. Respecting a maybe shows patience, allowing someone to decide in their own time. This patience often strengthens intimacy, as it proves that care for the partner's comfort outweighs urgency. The eighth fact is that consent applies to long-term relationships just as much as to new encounters. Marriage or partnership does not grant permanent consent. Every interaction requires checking in. Studies show that couples who continue to ask and respect boundaries, even after years together, report higher levels of satisfaction and trust. The habit of asking communicates ongoing respect, preventing assumptions from eroding intimacy. The ninth fact is that communication styles differ, and learning how a partner expresses comfort or discomfort is part of building intimacy. Some people prefer verbal affirmations, while others rely on gentle cues. Healthy communication means adjusting to each other's style, while always ensuring that the message is clear. Relationships thrive when both partners feel heard in the language they use most naturally. The 10th fact is that safe words provide an additional layer of clarity, especially in situations where ordinary language might be difficult to interpret. A predetermined safe word signals an immediate pause, ensuring that no assumptions are made about comfort levels. Research on intimacy and safety highlights how safe words create psychological security, encouraging exploration while keeping control firmly in the hands of all participants. The 11th fact is that consent is not only about physical intimacy, but about emotional and digital spaces as well. Asking before sharing private information, posting photos, or discussing details with others is part of modern consent. Digital intimacy, just like physical closeness, requires respect and agreement. This expansion of consent into technology is a natural evolution in an increasingly connected world. The 12th fact is that open communication about desires and boundaries strengthens relationships beyond intimacy. Discussing needs, fears, and preferences reduces misunderstandings and prevents conflicts from growing. Couples who regularly talk about their emotional and physical needs tend to build deeper bonds because honesty fosters mutual trust. Transparency is the bridge between safety and closeness. The 13th fact is that aftercare, the time following intimacy, is just as important as what happens before or during. Aftercare can include cuddling, talking, offering reassurance, or simply being present. These actions calm the nervous system, reinforce trust, and prevent feelings of abandonment. Research shows that aftercare increases relationship satisfaction because it transforms intimacy into a complete, caring experience rather than an isolated event. The 14th fact is that aftercare reduces stress hormones and increases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. This biological effect is why people often feel calmer, closer, and more secure after being cared for in simple, affectionate ways. A hand held, a kind word, or quiet companionship can have profound effects on both emotional and physical well-being. Aftercare is science and tenderness woven together. The 15th fact is that aftercare can look different for everyone. Some prefer conversation, others silence. Some want closeness, others need space. The key is asking and listening. Just as consent varies, so does the shape of care afterward. Respecting individual needs ensures that aftercare feels genuine rather than routine. The 16th fact is that communication, consent, and aftercare are not separate skills but parts of one continuous cycle. Asking before, checking during, and caring after form the rhythm of healthy intimacy. When practiced consistently, they create a loop of trust where both partners feel secure enough to explore and grow together. This cycle turns intimacy from chance into choice, from assumption into collaboration. The 17th fact, the closing truth of this chapter, is that communication and consent are acts of love. They demonstrate respect, care, and recognition of another person's humanity. Aftercare extends that recognition, ensuring that intimacy ends with comfort rather than confusion. Together, these practices transform relationships into safe havens, where boundaries are respected and closeness is cherished. And so the chapter closes with a gentle reminder. Asking is not awkward, saying no is not cruel, and caring afterward is not optional. These are the quiet practices that protect relationships, nurture trust, and deepen intimacy. In a world where misunderstandings can cause harm, communication, consent, and aftercare stand as the guiding lights, illuminating the path to healthy love. When we speak of love and intimacy, we often imagine grand emotions or dramatic gestures, yet one of the most important truths lies in something smaller and quieter. The way our bodies and minds experience pleasure and respond to touch. Pleasure itself is not a single sensation, but a symphony conducted by the nervous system, filtered through context and tuned by emotion. Touch is not just a physical event. it is also psychological, cultural, and deeply personal. What feels good in one moment may not feel good in another, and understanding this shifting landscape is key to building intimacy that is safe, healthy, and fulfilling. The first fact is that the nervous system is the gateway to pleasure. Every touch, sound, or sight is converted into electrical signals carried by nerves to the brain. Specialized receptors in the skin detect pressure, temperature, and vibration, while deeper receptors sense stretch and movement. These signals travel through the spinal cord and into the brain, where regions such as the somatosensory cortex map them onto conscious experience. Without this intricate communication network, the body would not register sensation. Pleasure is born from the way the brain interprets signals, not simply from the signals themselves. The second fact is that pleasure is strongly shaped by context. The same touch can feel comforting in one setting and uncomfortable in another. Neuroscientists call this top-down modulation. The brain does not merely record sensation, but filters it through expectation, trust, and emotional state. If someone feels safe, cared for, and relaxed, their brain interprets touch as pleasant. If they feel stressed, distracted, or fearful, the same touch may be neutral or even unpleasant. This explains why environment and emotional connection matter so deeply in intimacy. The third fact is that stress alters the body's response to touch. Stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, raising cortisol levels, increasing heart rate, and shifting blood flow to muscles in preparation for fight or flight. In this state, the brain is less receptive to gentle stimuli, and pleasure may be muted. Conversely, when stress is reduced, the parasympathetic nervous system takes the lead, slowing the heart, calming the body, and amplifying sensitivity to pleasurable touch. This interplay shows that relaxation is not indulgence, but a biological prerequisite for pleasure. The fourth fact is that mindfulness increases the perception of pleasure. Mindfulness is the practice of bringing full attention to the present moment without judgment. Research shows that when people focus consciously on sensation, on texture, temperature, or rhythm, the brain's reward centers become more active. By noticing the details of touch instead of rushing past them, people actually enhance their own experience of pleasure. Mindfulness transforms ordinary contact into something richer and more satisfying. The fifth fact is that pacing is crucial. The nervous system does not respond equally to all kinds of stimulation. Nerves adapt quickly when exposed to constant input, meaning that a steady, unchanging touch soon fades into the background of awareness. Variation in pressure, rhythm, or movement keeps receptors engaged, maintaining the flow of signals to the brain. This is why pacing, slow, attentive, and dynamic, heightens sensation far more effectively than speed or intensity alone. The sixth fact is that what feels pleasurable is highly individual. Genetics, personal history, culture, and emotional associations all shape responses to touch. One person may love light contact, while another finds it distracting. Some may prefer steady rhythm, others irregular surprises. These differences are not flaws, but natural variations in nervous system wiring and psychological conditioning. Respecting individual preferences is a sign of care, acknowledging that there is no universal formula for pleasure. The seventh fact is that oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, enhances the experience of touch. Oxytocin is released during affectionate contact, calming the amygdala, the brain's center of fear and stress. It promotes feelings of trust, safety, and connection. This is why gentle, caring touch between partners often feels emotionally soothing as well as physically pleasant. Oxytocin transforms touch from a surface sensation into a bond that strengthens relationships. The eighth fact is that dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, plays a central role in anticipation and novelty. Dopamine spikes when experiences are new or when pleasure is expected but not guaranteed. This system rewards curiosity and exploration, ensuring that touch does not become stale. Introducing novelty, new ways of connecting, new contexts, or even new conversations about pleasure, reawakens dopamine pathways, keeping relationships alive with discovery. The ninth fact is that endorphins, the body's natural opioids, add another layer to the pleasure response. Endorphins are released during sustained physical contact, exercise, or laughter. They reduce pain and generate feelings of warmth and relaxation. These chemicals explain why affectionate touch can relieve headaches, lower stress, or improve sleep. Endorphins reveal that pleasure is not only about excitement, but also about comfort and release. The 10th fact is that memory strongly influences how the body interprets touch. Experiences of safety, affection, or trauma leave lasting imprints on the nervous system. A type of touch associated with comfort in childhood may continue to feel soothing throughout life. Conversely, a touch linked to negative experiences may trigger discomfort even in safe situations. This is why communication and trust are essential. They help partners separate past associations from present realities, reshaping memory into new patterns of safety and joy. The 11th fact is that sensory experience extends beyond the skin. The nervous system integrates multiple inputs, sound, smell, sight, and even taste, into the perception of pleasure. A familiar voice, a calming scent, or soft lighting can heighten sensitivity by shaping the brain's interpretation of touch. This multi-sensory integration explains why environment influences intimacy so profoundly. A peaceful setting primes the nervous system for positive experiences. The 12th fact is that cultural expectations affect what people perceive as pleasurable or acceptable. Different societies encourage or discourage certain forms of touch, shaping neural pathways and emotional responses. Someone raised in a culture where affectionate touch is common may feel comfortable with closeness, while another raised in a reserved culture may feel anxious. Understanding these influences allows people to approach touch with sensitivity and openness, respecting personal boundaries shaped by cultural experience. The 13th fact is that the brain's reward system values unpredictability. Predictable patterns eventually lose their effect as the nervous system adapts. Small surprises, changes in rhythm, direction, or context, activate neural circuits more strongly. This is why playful variation often enhances intimacy. The brain thrives on patterns that balance familiarity and surprise, safety and curiosity. The 14th fact is that aging changes the way the nervous system experiences touch, but it does not eliminate pleasure. Sensory receptors may decline in sensitivity over time, yet the brain's interpretation of touch often deepens, focusing more on emotional connection than raw sensation. Older adults frequently report that touch becomes more meaningful, even if less intense, demonstrating that pleasure is not limited to youth. The 15th fact is that emotional state alters perception as strongly as physical state. Depression, anxiety, or low self-esteem can blunt the body's sensitivity to pleasure. Conversely, feelings of love, acceptance, and confidence heighten it. Pleasure, then, is not only biological, but psychological. This is why mental health and relationship health are intertwined, each influencing the other in cycles of wellness or difficulty. The 16th fact is that pleasure can be cultivated through practice. Just as mindfulness trains attention, intentional focus on sensation trains the nervous system to become more responsive. Research in sensory psychology shows that repeated attention to touch increases the brain's ability to detect subtle differences, expanding the range of what feels good. This practice turns pleasure into a skill that can grow over time. The 17th fact, the final truth of this chapter, is that pleasure and touch are not luxuries, but essential forms of human connection. They reduce stress, build trust, and improve health. They remind people of their humanity, their vulnerability, and their capacity for comfort and joy. Touch does not need to be dramatic to matter. A hand held, a shoulder brushed, or a hug given with sincerity carries the weight of biology and emotion together. In the end, what feels good is not just about nerves firing, but about hearts listening. And so this chapter comes to rest with the gentle reminder that pleasure is not fixed, but fluid, not universal, but personal, and always worth approaching with curiosity, patience, and care. Touch is a language the body speaks, and the nervous system translates. When practiced with respect, mindfulness, and attentiveness, it becomes a lifelong source of connection, health, and wonder. While conversations about pleasure and attachment reveal how intimacy feels, the discussion of contraception and protection reveals how intimacy remains safe, healthy, and aligned with personal goals. Safer sex is not a restriction, but a liberation, offering individuals and couples the freedom to enjoy closeness without fear or uncertainty. The first fact is that barrier methods remain one of the most accessible and widely used forms of protection. Condoms, whether external or internal, act as physical shields that block sperm from reaching an egg and also reduce the transmission of sexually transmitted infections. They are inexpensive, easy to find, and require no prescription, which makes them a cornerstone of sexual health. Latex is common, but alternatives such as polyurethane and polyisoprene exist for those with sensitivities. When used correctly and consistently, external condoms have an effectiveness rate of about 98%, while internal condoms provide a similar level of protection. Their dual role, preventing pregnancy and reducing STI risk, makes them unique among contraception options. The second fact is that hormonal contraception offers a wide range of choices designed to regulate cycles, prevent ovulation, and provide reliable protection. Birth control pills, for example, are taken daily and work by delivering synthetic versions of estrogen and progestin, hormones that stop the ovaries from releasing eggs. They also thicken cervical mucus, making it more difficult for sperm to travel. When taken as prescribed, they are more than 99% effective. Beyond pregnancy prevention, the pill often provides secondary benefits, such as lighter periods, reduced cramping, and improvements in acne, showing that hormonal methods are not only about contraception, but about overall reproductive wellness. The third fact is that hormonal patches provide an alternative for those who prefer not to take daily pills. The patch is worn on the skin, usually replaced once a week, and releases hormones steadily into the bloodstream. This option appeals to people who want a low-maintenance routine without the need to remember a daily schedule. Like the pill, the patch prevents ovulation and alters cervical mucus. Its effectiveness is also high, though it depends on proper placement and timely replacement. Convenience, however, must be weighed against possible skin irritation or sensitivity to adhesives, demonstrating that each method has trade-offs that individuals must consider. The fourth fact is that vaginal rings represent another hormonal option with monthly maintenance. A flexible ring is inserted into the vagina, where it slowly releases estrogen and progestin. It remains in place for 3 weeks and is removed for 1 week to allow for withdrawal bleeding. Many find the ring appealing because of its ease and discretion. Effectiveness mirrors other hormonal methods, above 99% with perfect use. The ring also provides cycle control, but like all hormonal methods, it can cause side effects such as mood changes or breast tenderness. Still, for many, its balance of convenience and reliability makes it a favored choice. The fifth fact is that injectable contraception, commonly referred to as the shot, offers long-lasting protection with a single dose. An injection of progestin is given every 3 months, preventing ovulation and thickening cervical mucus. This method appeals to those who do not want daily or weekly responsibilities. The shot is more than 99% effective when administered on time, but missing an injection reduces its reliability. Side effects may include changes in menstrual cycles, sometimes leading to lighter or absent periods over time. While convenient, it requires access to healthcare providers for administration, which can be a barrier in some settings. The sixth fact is that long-acting reversible contraception, known as LARC, provides some of the most effective options available. These include intrauterine devices, or IUDs, and implants. A hormonal implant, placed under the skin of the upper arm, releases progestin for up to 3 years, offering extremely high effectiveness with virtually no daily effort. The copper IUD, a non-hormonal option, releases copper ions toxic to sperm, preventing fertilization for up to 10 years. These methods are often chosen by those who want reliability without ongoing maintenance. LARC options are more expensive initially, but cost-effective over time, and their reversibility means fertility returns quickly after removal. The seventh fact is that emergency contraception is an important part of the toolkit for situations where primary methods fail or are not used. Emergency contraception pills, often called the morning after pill, work by delaying ovulation if taken within a certain window after unprotected intimacy. The sooner they are taken, the more effective they are. While not intended as regular birth control, they provide a safety net that can prevent unintended pregnancies. The copper IUD also serves as emergency contraception if inserted within 5 days, offering the highest level of protection and continuing to provide long-term coverage thereafter. The eighth fact is that fertility awareness methods provide non-hormonal approaches for those who prefer to track natural cycles. These methods involve monitoring basal body temperature, cervical mucus, and menstrual patterns to determine fertile windows. When practiced diligently, they can be effective, but they require daily attention and precision. Fertility awareness appeals to those who want a hormone-free, body-centered approach, though effectiveness varies greatly depending on accuracy and consistency. Education and commitment are key to success. The ninth fact is that withdrawal, or the pull-out method, is sometimes relied upon, though it is less effective than most other methods. Withdrawal requires timing and control, as sperm can be present in pre-ejaculate fluids, leading to unintended pregnancies. While it can reduce risk, its effectiveness is significantly lower than barrier or hormonal methods. For many, withdrawal may be a backup, but not a primary strategy, highlighting the importance of choosing methods that align with personal goals for reliability. The 10th fact is that dual protection, using more than one method together, provides extra security. For example, pairing condoms with hormonal contraception both prevents pregnancy and protects against STIs. Dual protection is often recommended for new relationships or situations where STI risk is higher. This layered approach recognizes that no single method is perfect, but that combinations can maximize safety and peace of mind. The 11th fact is that contraception is not one size fits all. Bodies, lifestyles, and goals differ, and the right method depends on individual health, comfort, and priorities. For some, daily pills fit seamlessly into routine. For others, a long-acting implant offers freedom from remembering schedules. For others still, barrier methods provide control without medical involvement. The most important factor is finding a method that supports both physical wellness and personal comfort. The 12th fact is that contraception has health benefits beyond pregnancy prevention. Hormonal methods can regulate irregular cycles, reduce heavy bleeding, ease endometriosis symptoms, and manage conditions like polycystic ovary syndrome. For many, contraception is part of overall reproductive health care, not only birth control. This highlights the broader role of these tools in improving quality of life and supporting wellness across different life stages. The 13th fact is that protection against sexually transmitted infections is a separate but equally vital concern. While hormonal methods and IUDs prevent pregnancy, they do not stop STI transmission. Only barrier methods, condoms and dental dams, offer significant protection against infections. This distinction is critical, as some may assume that birth control pills or IUDs provide full protection when they do not. Comprehensive sexual health means considering both pregnancy prevention and infection prevention together. The 14th fact is that correct use is as important as the method itself. Condoms, for instance, are highly effective when used properly, but less so if applied late, removed too early, or damaged. Birth control pills lose effectiveness if doses are skipped. Even IUDs require periodic checks to ensure placement remains correct. Education about use is therefore just as crucial as access to the methods themselves. The 15th fact is that conversations about contraception strengthen relationships. Discussing which methods to use, how to share responsibility, and how to handle mistakes fosters trust and respect. Partners who make these choices together tend to feel more secure, knowing that both are invested in safety and wellness. Communication about contraception is a form of care, showing that intimacy is valued enough to protect. The 16th fact is that contraception access is uneven across the world, with barriers including cost, stigma, and healthcare availability. Public health research shows that when contraception is accessible, unintended pregnancies decrease, maternal health improves, and communities thrive. Safer sex is not only a personal choice, but also a societal priority, reminding us that the toolkit should be available to all, regardless of circumstance. The 17th fact, the final truth of this chapter, is that safer sex practices are about empowerment, not restriction. Choosing contraception or protection is choosing confidence, health, and freedom. Each method, whether barrier, hormonal, copper, IUD, emergency contraception, or fertility awareness, offers tools to shape intimacy with intention. The goal is not to fit into one universal answer, but to match methods to individual bodies, goals, and values. In this way, the safer sex toolkit becomes not a burden, but a key, unlocking relationships built on trust, responsibility, and joy. And so this chapter rests on the reminder that protection is care, contraception is choice, and safer sex is the quiet safeguard of intimacy. By learning, choosing wisely, and respecting each other's needs, individuals and couples can approach love without fear, creating relationships that are safe, satisfying, and sustainable. When people speak of sexual health, the conversation often centers on protection, desire, or contraception. But one of the most important aspects is understanding sexually transmitted infections. STIs are far more common than most people realize, and they carry not only medical significance, but emotional and relational weight as well. Talking openly about them is not a warning meant to discourage intimacy, but an invitation to build relationships grounded in honesty, safety, and care. Knowledge transforms fear into empowerment, and testing and treatment transform uncertainty into confidence. The first fact is that STIs are highly prevalent across the world. Millions of new cases are diagnosed each year, affecting people of every age, background, and orientation. The World Health Organization estimates that more than 1 million new STIs are acquired daily worldwide. Many of these infections are treatable, but because stigma often silences discussion, people underestimate their frequency. Normalizing conversations about prevalence helps reduce shame and encourages proactive testing and treatment, reminding everyone that sexual health is part of overall health. The second fact is that many STIs can be asymptomatic, meaning they produce no obvious signs. Chlamydia, for instance, is frequently called a silent infection because it often causes no symptoms until complications arise. Gonorrhea, trichomoniasis, and even syphilis can remain unnoticed in their early stages. HIV may also progress silently for years before symptoms emerge. This lack of visible warning highlights why regular screening is essential. Absence of symptoms does not mean absence of infection. The third fact is that when symptoms do appear, they vary widely. Some infections cause discharge, itching, sores, or pain during urination. Others present as rashes, swollen glands, or flu-like symptoms. Because these signs can overlap with other conditions, self-diagnosis is unreliable. Only professional testing can confirm whether an infection is present. Recognizing that symptoms are diverse and sometimes invisible underscores the importance of regular medical care rather than guesswork. The fourth fact is that routine screening is a cornerstone of sexual health. Medical guidelines recommend that sexually active individuals be tested at regular intervals, often once a year, and more frequently if they have new or multiple partners. Screenings typically include tests for chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, HIV, and sometimes hepatitis. Early detection prevents complications and reduces transmission to partners. Making screening a normal part of healthcare helps ensure infections are caught and treated before they become serious. The fifth fact is that vaccines protect against certain STIs. The human papillomavirus, or HPV, is the most common STI worldwide. And while most strains are harmless, some can cause cancers or genital warts. Vaccines against HPV are highly effective in preventing the most dangerous strains and are recommended for both adolescents and adults. Hepatitis B, another viral infection transmitted sexually and through blood, also has a safe and effective vaccine. These vaccines represent one of the strongest tools in the Safer Sex Toolkit, providing long-term protection where other methods may fall short. The sixth fact is that bacterial STIs such as chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis can be treated and cured with antibiotics when caught early. Treatment not only resolves symptoms, but prevents long-term complications such as infertility, pelvic inflammatory disease, or organ damage. Partner care is equally important. Both individuals must be treated to prevent reinfection. Antibiotic resistance, particularly with gonorrhea, is an emerging challenge, which makes early detection and proper treatment even more critical. The seventh fact is that viral STIs cannot be cured, but can be managed effectively with medical care. HIV, for example, is controlled with antiretroviral therapy, which allows people to live long, healthy lives and reduces the virus to undetectable levels. An undetectable viral load means the virus cannot be sexually transmitted, a concept summarized by the phrase U equals U. Undetectable equals untransmittable. Herpes, caused by HSV1 and HSV2, cannot be eradicated, but is managed with antiviral medication that reduces outbreaks and transmission risk. These treatments highlight how medical advances have turned once devastating infections into manageable conditions. The eighth fact is that partner notification and care are essential in treatment. If one partner tests positive for an STI, informing current and recent partners allows them to be tested and treated as well. This practice prevents reinfection and protects wider communities. While these conversations can feel uncomfortable, they are acts of responsibility and respect. Many clinics provide confidential support for partner notification, easing the burden of these discussions. The ninth fact is that untreated STIs can have serious long-term consequences. Chlamydia and gonorrhea can lead to pelvic inflammatory disease, which may cause infertility or chronic pain. Syphilis, if left untreated, can progress to affect the brain, heart, and nervous system, becoming life-threatening. Human papillomavirus can cause cervical, anal, or throat cancers. These risks are preventable through regular testing and timely treatment, but they serve as reminders that ignoring infections carries real costs. The 10th fact is that condoms and other barrier methods remain highly effective at reducing STI transmission. While no method is perfect, external and internal condoms, when used correctly, provide strong protection against many infections transmitted through fluids. Dental dams can also reduce risk during oral sex. Pairing barrier methods with regular testing creates a layered defense that keeps intimacy both safe and pleasurable. The 11th fact is that STI testing is faster and easier than ever before. Many clinics offer rapid tests for HIV with results available in minutes. Urine samples, swabs, or blood tests can detect a range of infections with minimal discomfort. At-home test kits are also becoming more widely available, allowing people to check their status privately before seeking care if needed. Removing logistical barriers makes it easier for people to stay proactive about their health. The 12th fact is that stigma remains one of the biggest challenges in sexual health. Fear of judgment discourages people from seeking testing or disclosing infections. Education and compassion are powerful antidotes to this stigma. Normalizing STI conversations in the same way we discuss other health issues creates a culture where care is seen as responsible rather than shameful. Reducing stigma encourages more people to protect themselves and others. The 13th fact is that communication with partners is as important as medical care. Discussing STI testing, vaccination, and protection strategies ensures that both individuals are making informed choices. These conversations build trust and normalize sexual health as part of relationship wellness. When couples view STI prevention as a shared responsibility, it strengthens bonds rather than creating fear. The 14th fact is that STI risk is not limited to certain groups or behaviors. Anyone who is sexually active can acquire an infection, regardless of orientation, age, or lifestyle. While some behaviors increase risk, such as unprotected sex with multiple partners, no group is immune. Recognizing this universality is important to combat stereotypes and ensure everyone takes responsibility for their own health. The 15th fact is that public health systems play a vital role in STI prevention. Community clinics, vaccination programs, educational campaigns, and affordable treatment options all help reduce transmission rates. Access to care is essential, and regions with strong public health infrastructure show better outcomes in controlling infections. Supporting these systems benefits individuals and society alike. The 16th fact is that self-advocacy is critical in sexual health. Asking healthcare providers about recommended screenings, seeking vaccination, and requesting partner care are all ways individuals take control of their wellness. Healthcare should be collaborative, with patients encouraged to speak openly about their concerns and needs. Empowerment in healthcare translates into empowerment in relationships. The 17th fact, the final truth of this chapter, is that sexual health is a shared responsibility, not a burden. ST is not a mark of failure or moral judgment, but a reality of human intimacy. With vaccines, treatments, barrier methods, and regular testing, they can be prevented, managed, and overcome. Care for oneself and one's partners is the essence of respect. Knowledge, communication, and compassion transform STI care from a topic of fear into a practice of love. And so this chapter closes with the reminder that the most powerful tools against STIs are not only medical, but relational: honesty, testing, treatment, and care for partners. When combined, these practices create intimacy that is both safe and meaningful, freeing people to connect with confidence and kindness. Fertility, conception, and pregnancy are among the most natural processes in human life, yet they remain wrapped in mystery for many. Understanding how the body prepares for new life is not only helpful for those hoping to conceive, but also empowering for anyone who wants to know their own biology more deeply. Fertility is not a simple on and off switch. It is a rhythm that changes with cycles, ages, and circumstances. Pregnancy is not just the outcome of conception, but a journey shaped by health, care, and emotional well-being. And infertility, often carried in silence, is a reality that deserves compassion, honesty, and support rather than shame. The first fact is that the menstrual cycle is the foundation of fertility, typically lasting about 28 days, though healthy cycles can range anywhere from 21 to 35 days. The cycle begins with menstruation, when the uterine lining is shed, and continues through the follicular phase, ovulation, and the luteal phase. Ovulation, the release of a mature egg from the ovary, is the key event that makes conception possible. While cycles vary from person to person, understanding one's individual rhythm is essential for knowing when fertility is highest. The second fact is that the fertile window is relatively short. An egg, once released, survives only 12 to 24 hours. However, sperm can live in the female reproductive tract for up to 5 days under the right conditions. This means the fertile window is usually considered to be about 6 days, the 5 days leading up to ovulation and the day of ovulation itself. Timing intimacy during this window significantly increases the chance of conception. The third fact is that ovulation is not always easy to predict, but there are clues. Basal body temperature rises slightly after ovulation. Cervical mucus becomes clearer and more slippery in the days leading up to it, and ovulation predictor kits can measure hormone surges in urine. Tracking these signs through fertility awareness methods helps identify the fertile window, though precision requires consistent observation. These methods give people greater understanding of their bodies, whether they are trying to conceive or avoid pregnancy naturally. The fourth fact is that conception odds vary even in ideal conditions. For a healthy couple in their 20s or early 30s, the chance of conceiving in a given cycle is roughly 20 to 25%. This means that even with perfect timing, it may take several months to achieve pregnancy. After a year of trying, about 85% of couples will conceive naturally. This shows that patience is often necessary and that delays do not automatically indicate infertility. The fifth fact is that age plays a significant role in fertility. Female fertility peaks in the late teens and 20s and begins to decline more noticeably after age 35, as both egg quantity and quality decrease. Male fertility also declines with age, though usually more gradually, as sperm quality diminishes. These biological realities are important to acknowledge with compassion rather than fear, recognizing that while age affects probability, many people conceive outside of these averages. The sixth fact is that overall health strongly influences fertility. Body weight, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and stress levels all affect reproductive hormones and ovulation. Smoking, excessive alcohol use, and certain medical conditions can also reduce fertility. For men, lifestyle factors influence sperm count and motility. Good reproductive health, then, is inseparable from general wellness, making balanced living an important foundation for conception. The seventh fact is that sperm health is as important as egg health. Sperm count, shape, and movement determine whether fertilization is possible. Heat, smoking, poor diet, and certain illnesses can all lower sperm quality. Semen analysis provides valuable insights for couples facing delays in conception, showing that fertility challenges are not only about women, but about men as well. The eighth fact is that fertilization usually occurs in the fallopian tube, not the uterus. After ovulation, the egg is swept into the fallopian tube, where sperm may meet it and penetrate its outer shell. Once fertilized, the embryo travels down the tube over several days before implanting into the uterine lining. This delicate sequence requires healthy eggs, healthy sperm, clear fallopian tubes, and a receptive uterus, demonstrating how many small steps must align for conception to occur. The ninth fact is that early pregnancy signs vary widely. Some experience nausea, breast tenderness, fatigue, or missed periods, while others feel no different in the first few weeks. Home pregnancy tests detect the hormone HCG produced after implantation and can usually confirm pregnancy around the time a period is missed. Blood tests at clinics are more sensitive, detecting lower levels earlier. Awareness of these signs helps people recognize pregnancy sooner and begin prenatal care early. The 10th fact is that prenatal care is essential for both parent and baby. Regular checkups monitor blood pressure, blood sugar, weight, and fetal growth, while ultrasounds track development. Prenatal vitamins, especially those containing folic acid, reduce the risk of birth defects. Healthy nutrition, hydration, and rest support both mother and child. Prenatal care also provides emotional reassurance, helping parents feel guided and supported throughout pregnancy. The 11th fact is that pregnancy involves major changes across the body. Hormones like progesterone and estrogen rise dramatically, supporting the growing fetus and preparing the body for labor. Blood volume increases, the heart works harder, and the immune system shifts to protect both parent and baby. These changes are remarkable feats of biology, but can also cause discomforts such as fatigue, swelling, or heartburn. Understanding these changes helps normalize them and reduces anxiety. The 12th fact is that miscarriage is more common than many realize. An estimated 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in loss, often before the person even knows they are pregnant. Most miscarriages are due to chromosomal abnormalities beyond anyone's control. While loss is deeply painful, it does not mean someone is incapable of carrying a healthy pregnancy later. Compassionate conversations about miscarriage reduce isolation, reminding people they are not alone and that grief is valid. The 13th fact is that infertility is defined medically as the inability to conceive after 1 year of regular, unprotected intercourse, or 6 months for those over 35. Infertility affects about 10 to 15% of couples, and causes are shared almost equally between male and female factors. Assisted reproductive technologies such as in vitro fertilization, IVF, intrauterine insemination, IUI, and fertility medications offer paths to conception for many. Recognizing infertility as a health condition, not a personal failing, helps reduce stigma. The 14th fact is that secondary infertility, difficulty conceiving after already having a child, is also common. This condition can be surprising and emotionally challenging, as many expect subsequent pregnancies to be easier. Health changes, age, or unexplained factors can contribute. Supportive care and medical evaluation help couples facing this challenge, reinforcing that every fertility journey is unique. The 15th fact is that male fertility testing is just as important as female testing. Semen analysis, hormone tests, and genetic screenings provide valuable insight. Acknowledging male factors ensures that fertility care is shared, not placed solely on women. Equal responsibility supports healthier relationships and reduces blame, turning challenges into shared efforts rather than divisions. The 16th fact is that support systems make a profound difference in fertility journeys. Whether through counseling, support groups, or compassionate communication between partners, emotional support eases the stress of trying to conceive. Stress itself can disrupt cycles and hormones, so fostering a supportive environment is not only emotionally beneficial, but physiologically helpful. Fertility is never just a medical journey, but also an emotional one. The 17th fact, the closing truth of this chapter, is that fertility and pregnancy are not simply biological functions, but deeply human experiences filled with hope, challenge, joy, and grief. For some, conception is quick and pregnancy is smooth. For others, it is a winding path marked by delays, losses, or the need for medical support. Compassion, for oneself and for others, is the thread that weaves these varied experiences together. Every story deserves respect, whether it ends with parenthood, with healing, or with redefining family in new ways. And so, this chapter ends with the reminder that fertility is a rhythm, conception is a chance, and pregnancy is a journey. Prenatal care, understanding, and compassion transform these processes into experiences shaped not by fear, but by knowledge and care. In every stage, whether waiting for a positive test, preparing for birth, or grieving a loss, the same truth endures. Fertility and reproduction are part of the human story, and each person's path within it is worthy of dignity and love. Conversations about sex are often complicated, not because the body is mysterious, but because myths and misconceptions cloud the truth. For generations, people have inherited half-true stories, exaggerated claims, and cultural expectations shaped more by rumor or media than by biology. These myths create unnecessary pressure, sow insecurity, and sometimes discourage people from exploring intimacy in ways that are safe, respectful, and fulfilling. By gently debunking these myths, it becomes easier to appreciate the diversity of real human experiences and let go of comparisons to misleading standards. The first fact is that size myths dominate cultural conversations, but they are largely irrelevant to satisfaction or health. Scientific studies consistently show that emotional intimacy, communication, and mutual attentiveness are the strongest predictors of fulfilling relationships, not anatomical measurements. Media and advertising often exaggerate or overemphasize size as a marker of worth, but in reality, comfort, care, and connection matter far more. Letting go of size myths removes an unnecessary burden from countless people who otherwise compare themselves to unrealistic ideals. The second fact is that there is no universal normal frequency for intimacy. Some couples are physically intimate daily, others weekly, others only occasionally, and all of these patterns can be healthy if they meet the needs of those involved. Studies on relationship satisfaction demonstrate that frequency is not what predicts happiness. Instead, mutual desire and compatibility do. Media often suggests that more always equals better, but real relationships are about quality and communication rather than ticking boxes of quantity. The third fact is that porn often misrepresents reality. Adult media is designed for performance and entertainment, not education or accuracy. It frequently portrays unrealistic bodies, exaggerated reactions, and an absence of communication about consent or safety. While it can be fantasy for some, treating it as a model for real intimacy can create harmful expectations. Understanding the difference between entertainment and reality helps prevent disappointment and supports healthier attitudes toward one's body and relationships. The fourth fact is that pop culture often shapes intimacy expectations in subtle but powerful ways. Movies, television, and songs may suggest that passion is always spontaneous, effortless, and perfect. In reality, healthy intimacy usually involves communication, vulnerability, and sometimes humor or awkwardness. These ordinary moments are not flaws, but reminders of human connection. Comparing real experiences to scripted ones can create pressure, when in fact the unscripted moments are often the most meaningful. The fifth fact is that myths about male and female desire oversimplify reality. Stereotypes often suggest that men always want intimacy and women rarely do. But research shows that desire varies widely across individuals regardless of gender. Many men struggle with low desire due to stress or health issues, while many women report high and consistent interest. Desire is shaped by biology, psychology, context, and personal history, not gender alone. Moving beyond these myths allows relationships to be built on real understanding rather than stereotypes. The sixth fact is that myths about spontaneous desire overlook the importance of context. Some people feel desire quickly and automatically, while others experience it only after emotional closeness or physical touch begins. Both patterns are normal. Expecting everyone to feel instant passion can make people doubt their normality, when in fact the diversity of desire is part of human variation. Recognizing different desire patterns reduces pressure and helps partners respond with patience and care. The seventh fact is that myths about what counts as intimacy often limit people's imagination. Many believe intimacy must follow a particular script or include certain acts to count. In reality, intimacy includes a wide range of experiences, from holding hands and cuddling to shared laughter and emotional disclosure. Narrow definitions exclude the richness of connection. Expanding the view of what intimacy means allows people to feel validated in their unique expressions of closeness. The eighth fact is that myths about virginity can create unnecessary stigma. In many cultures, virginity is treated as a physical state or moral marker, but biologically, there is no clear medical definition. The hymen, often associated with virginity, can vary in shape and may tear or stretch for reasons unrelated to intimacy. Framing virginity as a measure of worth or purity is misleading and harmful. Instead, the focus should be on choice, readiness, and consent, not on outdated myths. The ninth fact is that myths about fertility often cause confusion. Some believe pregnancy can occur at any time of the cycle, while others assume it is nearly impossible except on a single day. In reality, the fertile window is several days long and depends on the overlap of sperm survival and egg release. Understanding these biological rhythms removes fear on one side and false reassurance on the other, helping people make informed decisions about contraception and conception. The 10th fact is that myths about ST is fuel stigma and misinformation. Some people assume that only certain groups are at risk, or that an infection is a sign of irresponsibility. In truth, anyone who is sexually active can contract an STI, regardless of background, orientation, or lifestyle. With regular testing, vaccines, and treatment, most infections can be managed or cured. Dispelling myths about ST replaces fear with responsibility and compassion. The 11th fact is that myths about gender identity and sexual orientation often erase real human experiences. Some media suggest that identity is a phase or a choice, but research and lived reality show that orientation and gender identity are natural variations of humanity. These aspects of self may remain stable or may shift over time, but in either case, they deserve respect. Rejecting myths about identity allows people to describe themselves authentically and be met with acceptance. The 12th fact is that myths about performance often undermine confidence. Cultural messages suggest that intimacy must always be flawless, passionate, and sustained for long periods. In reality, bodies vary, moods shift, and sometimes things do not go as planned. Performance pressure can actually decrease satisfaction by making people self-conscious rather than present. Letting go of performance myths opens the way for authenticity, laughter, and connection that feel more real and less rehearsed. The 13th fact is that myths about aging and intimacy are misleading. Popular culture often portrays intimacy as something belonging only to the young, but research shows that many people remain sexually active and satisfied well into later life. While hormones and energy levels may change, affection, closeness, and desire do not vanish with age. Breaking age-related myths helps older adults feel validated and frees them from stereotypes that deny their humanity. The 14th fact is that myths about body image affect nearly everyone. Media often showcases a narrow range of bodies, leaving people who do not match these ideals feeling unattractive or inadequate. In truth, healthy sexuality comes in every shape, size, and form. Attraction is diverse, and fulfillment has little to do with appearance alone. Breaking free from body myths reduces shame and allows people to appreciate themselves and their partners as they are. The 15th fact is that myths about communication suggest that partners should just know what each other wants without words. In reality, no one is a mind reader. Effective communication is a skill, not a magical ability. Expecting silent understanding creates disappointment, while honest discussion creates clarity. Dispelling the communication myth transforms intimacy into collaboration instead of guesswork. The 16th fact is that myths about frequency of passion in long-term relationships are often exaggerated. Many believe that desire must inevitably decline over time, but research shows that with effort, novelty, and emotional closeness, long-term couples can maintain satisfying intimacy. While patterns may shift, decline is not inevitable. This myth, when believed, discourages people from nurturing their relationships, when in reality, intimacy can grow deeper with time. The 17th fact, the final truth of this chapter, is that myths thrive in silence. When people do not talk openly about intimacy, media and rumor fill the gaps with distorted versions of reality. By gently debunking myths, whether about size, frequency, performance, orientation, or aging, people can create healthier expectations. Compassionate truth-telling liberates individuals from unnecessary shame and empowers them to embrace their own normal. And so this chapter closes with the reminder that intimacy is not about meeting a cultural script, but about building connection, respect, and care. Myths fall away when real experiences are shared and respected. Knowledge replaces insecurity with confidence, replacing comparison with compassion. In that clarity, people can find freedom to love and be loved without the weight of false expectations. Sex, love, and intimacy may feel like private and personal matters, yet across history, they have always been public concerns shaped by culture, religion, and law. Norms, taboos, and customs around sexuality have shifted dramatically across eras and places, reflecting broader changes in power, politics, and belief. What was once considered forbidden might later be normalized, while behaviors once accepted may be stigmatized in new contexts. Looking at the history and culture of sex reveals not only how diverse human experience has been, but also what lessons endure about respect, fairness, and the value of compassion. The first fact is that ancient societies often treated sexuality with openness that might surprise modern audiences. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome, sexuality was woven into religion, ritual, and daily life. Fertility deities were honored through symbols and stories, and temples often depicted intimacy as part of creation myths. Ancient Greeks discussed desire openly in literature and philosophy, linking eros with beauty and the pursuit of wisdom. While social hierarchies restricted who could enjoy full freedom, the idea that intimacy was natural and essential was deeply ingrained. The second fact is that many cultures also tied sexuality to the cycles of fertility and agriculture. Seasonal rituals and fertility festivals were common in ancient Europe, Asia, and Africa, emphasizing the link between human reproduction and the fertility of land and animals. These celebrations were not only symbolic, but reflected the shared dependence on nature. Sexuality was often seen as life-affirming, echoing the rhythm of sowing, growth, and harvest. The third fact is that the rise of organized religions introduced new structures of morality and law around sex. In Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, guidelines on modesty, marriage, and family roles became central to community life. While interpretations varied, the common theme was that sexuality needed to be regulated for social stability. Religious texts were used to define what was permissible, often associating virtue with restraint. These views influenced not only personal lives, but also the legal systems of entire civilizations. The fourth fact is that sexuality in medieval Europe was closely policed by both church and state. Marriage was sanctified as the only legitimate space for intimacy, and even within marriage, rules were set about acceptable behaviors. Taboos on premarital intimacy, same-sex relationships, or adultery were enforced through law and custom. Yet behind closed doors, people still experienced desire and connection in diverse ways, showing that private life often resisted official teachings. The contrast between official doctrine and everyday practice remains a recurring theme in sexual history. The fifth fact is that ideas about gender roles have long shaped sexual expectations. In many traditional societies, women's sexuality was closely tied to family honor, property, or lineage. Laws about virginity, dowries, or inheritance reinforced control over women's choices, reflecting broader systems of patriarchy. Men, by contrast, often had more accepted freedoms, though they too were bound by cultural expectations of strength and dominance. Over time, movements for gender equality challenged these roles, reshaping how sexuality was understood and practiced. The sixth fact is that different cultures had strikingly different approaches to same-sex relationships. Ancient Greece often celebrated male same-sex bonds, particularly between older and younger men in mentorship roles, while other cultures such as Imperial China or Edo period Japan also recorded traditions of same-sex intimacy. In contrast, later Western legal systems criminalized same-sex relationships for centuries, influenced by Christian doctrine. These shifting attitudes show how sexual orientation has been variously embraced, ignored, or condemned depending on cultural context. The seventh fact is that colonialism profoundly altered sexual norms across the globe. European powers often imposed their moral codes on colonized societies, labeling local practices as immoral or primitive. Indigenous traditions that recognized fluid gender roles or diverse sexual expressions were often suppressed. The legal frameworks established during colonial rule left lasting legacies, with anti-LGBTQ+ laws in some countries still rooted in colonial codes. Understanding this history is essential for recognizing how global inequality shaped sexual norms. The eighth fact is that the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution transformed how sexuality was studied. Physicians and philosophers began to view intimacy not only through a moral lens, but also through biology and psychology. The 19th century saw the emergence of sexology as a field, with researchers like Richard von Krafft-Ebing and Havelock Ellis cataloguing human behaviors. While some of their ideas reinforced stereotypes, others paved the way for modern sex education and a more scientific understanding of desire and orientation. The ninth fact is that the 20th century brought dramatic shifts in sexual norms, often referred to as the sexual revolution. Access to contraception, especially the birth control pill in the 1960s, gave people greater control over reproduction, enabling intimacy to be separated from parenthood. Feminist and LGBTQ+ movements challenged traditional roles, advocating for equality, consent, and freedom of expression. Popular culture also began portraying intimacy more openly in film, music, and literature. These changes created both excitement and backlash, but they reshaped the cultural landscape permanently. The 10th fact is that laws surrounding sexuality continue to evolve. For much of history, same-sex relationships were criminalized in many parts of the world, but in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, numerous countries repealed such laws and recognized same-sex marriage. Legal recognition of gender rights, reproductive rights, and protection from discrimination continue to expand, though not universally. These legal shifts reflect broader cultural changes in how societies understand fairness and human dignity. The 11th fact is that sex education has been a contested area in many cultures. In some regions, comprehensive education about consent, contraception, and anatomy is standard, while in others, abstinence-only approaches dominate. Research consistently shows that comprehensive sex education reduces unintended pregnancies and STI transmission. Yet myths and fears often shape policy. The tension between education and taboo illustrates how culture influences even the most practical aspects of health. The 12th fact is that media continues to play a central role in shaping sexual expectations. From romantic novels in the 18th century to Hollywood films and modern streaming platforms, depictions of love and desire influence how people imagine their own relationships. Pornography, while widely accessible, often sets unrealistic standards, reinforcing myths about performance and appearance. At the same time, new media also provides opportunities for more inclusive representations, highlighting diverse identities and experiences that were once hidden. The 13th fact is that attitudes toward reproduction have shifted dramatically over time. In many historical societies, large families were encouraged as a source of labor, wealth, or survival. In modern times, contraception, changing economic roles, and career priorities have led many to delay or limit parenthood. The meaning of family has expanded to include adoption, assisted reproduction, and chosen kinship networks, showing how culture shapes not only intimacy, but also the structures of community. The 14th fact is that shame has been a recurring theme in sexual history. Many cultures used shame to enforce compliance with norms, whether through public punishment, gossip, or religious teaching. Shame often silenced individuals, preventing open conversations about pleasure, consent, or health. Yet history also shows that shame-based systems rarely succeed in erasing human desire. Over time, movements for sexual rights and wellness have replaced shame with education and support, fostering healthier attitudes. The 15th fact is that across history, pleasure has been both celebrated and suppressed. Ancient poems, Indian texts like the Kama Sutra, and medieval Arabic manuals explored the art of pleasure in detail, seeing it as part of life's richness. Later, moral codes, however, often discouraged open talk about enjoyment, framing sex as solely for reproduction. Today, modern sexual wellness movements are rediscovering that pleasure is not frivolous, but an important aspect of health and intimacy. The 17th fact, the closing truth of this chapter, is that history shows sexuality is never static. Norms shift with politics, technology, and culture. What remains constant is the human search for connection, meaning, and fairness. By studying the past, we learn that many taboos and laws were less about biology and more about power, control, or tradition. What echoes across centuries is the need for compassion, honesty, and respect. These lessons are as vital today as they were in ancient times. And so this chapter rests with the gentle reminder that sexuality has always been a cultural mirror, reflecting what societies value and fear. From ancient fertility rituals to modern debates on rights and education, history tells a story not of one truth, but of many. Technology now touches nearly every part of modern life, and intimacy is no exception. Where once conversations about sex and relationships were private, now they are woven into apps, online platforms, streaming media, and virtual spaces. This expansion brings new opportunities for connection, education, and exploration, but also new challenges around privacy, misinformation, and respect. Learning to navigate technology with care means developing literacy not only in how to use tools, but also in how to protect oneself and one's relationships in the process. The first fact is that porn literacy is essential in the digital age. Adult media is more accessible than ever before, and while some people approach it as entertainment or fantasy, others may confuse it with reality. Studies consistently show that pornography often misrepresents bodies, intimacy, and consent, presenting exaggerated scenarios that can shape expectations in harmful ways. Porn literacy does not mean rejecting adult media entirely. It means recognizing it as performance rather than education. Understanding that difference allows individuals to develop healthier relationships with both themselves and others. The second fact is that sexting, the sending of sexual or intimate images or messages, is a normal part of modern digital intimacy for many people. But it carries risks that require caution. Once an image is sent, it can be copied, shared, or misused without consent. Sexting safety means thinking carefully before sending, choosing trusted partners, and setting clear boundaries. Research on adolescent and adult sexting shows that open conversations about risks and respect dramatically reduce harm, proving that awareness is as important as technology itself. The third fact is that consent online matters just as much as in person. Sharing an image, recording a video call, or forwarding a message without permission is a violation of trust. Digital consent involves asking before sending or posting, respecting a partner's privacy, and recognizing that control over personal images is a right. Just as healthy intimacy requires communication, digital intimacy requires explicit agreement, not assumptions. The fourth fact is that modern tools like sex toys, lubricants, and wearable devices have become increasingly mainstream, reflecting both technological innovation and cultural openness. Materials such as medical-grade silicone, stainless steel, and body-safe plastics are now widely available, offering safe options when used responsibly. The growth of this market shows not just changing consumer habits, but also a broader acceptance of sexual wellness as part of overall health. Choosing safe materials and reputable companies ensures that exploration is guided by both curiosity and care. The fifth fact is that telehealth has revolutionized access to sexual health services. Where once testing, consultations, or counseling required in-person visits, telehealth now allows individuals to access care remotely. This is particularly valuable for those in rural areas, those with mobility challenges, or those seeking privacy. From STI testing kits mailed to homes to virtual therapy sessions focused on intimacy and relationships, telehealth expands the possibilities for care. It shows how technology can reduce stigma and make help more accessible. The sixth fact is that digital tools for fertility and reproductive health are increasingly common. Apps that track cycles, ovulation, and symptoms empower individuals with knowledge about their bodies. While not all apps are medically accurate, many provide helpful insights when paired with professional care. This growing field illustrates the potential of technology to support self-awareness, though it also highlights the need for critical thinking about data accuracy and privacy. The seventh fact is that privacy is a major concern in the digital era. Many intimacy-related apps and platforms collect personal data, from browsing habits to fertility cycles. Protecting that data means reading privacy policies, choosing secure platforms, and being cautious about what information is shared. In an age when data is valuable, safeguarding sexual and reproductive health information is as important as protecting financial details. The eighth fact is that relationship apps have reshaped how people meet and form connections. From dating platforms to matchmaking services, these tools allow individuals to connect across distances and communities that might otherwise never intersect. Yet they also bring challenges such as ghosting, misrepresentation, or pressure to present an idealized self. Healthy use of relationship apps requires honesty, patience, and an awareness that online interaction is only one part of building trust. The ninth fact is that cyberbullying and harassment are real risks in digital intimacy. Unwanted messages, image-based abuse, or pressure for sexting can cause lasting harm. Media literacy means recognizing red flags, blocking unsafe interactions, and seeking support when harassment occurs. Just as one would walk away from an unsafe situation in person, digital self-protection involves setting boundaries and removing access to those who disrespect them. The 10th fact is that media literacy extends beyond adult content to include mainstream portrayals of love and relationships. Television, movies, and social media influencers often present an edited version of reality that emphasizes perfection. Filtered images, scripted romance, and exaggerated lifestyles can create unrealistic expectations that make real relationships feel inadequate by comparison. Recognizing the curated nature of media helps individuals embrace their own experiences without constant comparison. The 11th fact is that misinformation spreads quickly online, especially about sexual health. Social media platforms often circulate myths about contraception, pregnancy, or STIs, which can cause confusion and harm. Research shows that reliable sex education paired with critical thinking reduces the influence of misinformation. Verifying claims through trusted medical organizations or healthcare providers ensures that decisions are made on fact, not rumor. The 12th fact is that sextortion, coercion using intimate images, has emerged as a serious digital threat. This crime involves pressuring someone to provide explicit material and then threatening to share it unless demands are met. It highlights the importance of never sharing personal images under pressure and of reporting such situations to authorities. Public awareness campaigns stress that victims are never to blame and that help is available. The 13th fact is that online communities can also be sources of support and education. Forums, discussion groups, and virtual workshops offer spaces for people to share experiences and learn about intimacy, identity, or health. When moderated responsibly, these spaces reduce isolation and create networks of understanding. They show that technology can connect rather than divide when used with kindness and respect. The 14th fact is that algorithms and online advertising increasingly target people's searches about sexuality and relationships. This means that looking up information about contraception, pleasure, or identity often results in a flood of targeted ads. While this can connect people to useful resources, it also raises concerns about how data is stored and shared. Media literacy includes being aware of how search histories can shape online experiences. The 15th fact is that digital intimacy can be a positive extension of relationships when boundaries are clear. Video calls, shared playlists, or virtual date nights show that technology can strengthen bonds, especially for long-distance couples. Like all intimacy, the key lies in communication, consent, and creativity. When partners discuss comfort levels openly, digital tools become bridges rather than barriers. The 16th fact is that laws are still catching up to the digital age. In many countries, legislation against image-based abuse, revenge porn, or digital harassment is still developing. Advocacy groups emphasize the need for legal systems to reflect the realities of modern intimacy, protecting privacy and safety online just as in the physical world. Progress is ongoing, but awareness pushes change forward. The 17th fact, the final truth of this chapter, is that technology is neither inherently good nor bad. It is a tool shaped by how people use it. With awareness, boundaries, and compassion, digital tools can empower education, expand care, and enhance relationships. Without literacy, privacy, or consent, those same tools can harm. The balance lies in how individuals and communities choose to approach the digital world, with curiosity, with responsibility, and with respect. And so this chapter closes with the reminder that in a world where technology is woven into love and intimacy, media literacy and digital safety are forms of self-care. Just as the body requires nourishment and rest, the digital self requires protection and thoughtful use. With careful steps, technology can be a source of empowerment, turning challenges into opportunities and making modern intimacy safer, healthier, and more connected than ever before. Kink is one of those words that often carries more mystery than clarity. For some, it sparks curiosity. For others, it raises hesitation or misunderstanding. But when approached with respect, openness, and consent, kink is not about danger or secrecy. It is about exploring forms of intimacy that move beyond the everyday, while still keeping safety and trust at the very center. Understanding kink requires more than stereotypes or media portrayals. It requires literacy in consent frameworks, negotiation, and boundaries. It also means recognizing that people who explore kink are not unusual, broken, or risky, but simply participating in a variation of human intimacy that has existed for centuries. The first fact is that kink operates on the principle of consent more explicitly than almost any other form of intimacy. In many communities, consent is not assumed, but carefully planned, discussed, and reaffirmed. This emphasis comes from the understanding that activities often involve heightened intensity, whether physical, psychological, or emotional. Because of this, explicit consent and clear boundaries are treated as non-negotiable. In truth, kink is less about rebellion and more about structure, where safety and mutual agreement are the highest priorities. The second fact is that the frameworks SSC and RACK guide much of the philosophy around kink. SSC stands for safe, sane, and consensual. It emphasizes that activities should be safe, that all participants should be in a sound state of mind, and that everyone must freely agree. RACK, which stands for risk-aware consensual kink, builds on this idea by acknowledging that no activity is completely free of risk, but that informed adults can make choices when risks are clearly explained. Both frameworks reflect a culture of responsibility rather than recklessness. The third fact is that negotiation is a defining feature of healthy kink. Before activities begin, participants typically discuss preferences, boundaries, and expectations. Negotiation is not seen as unromantic or mechanical, but as an act of trust. It ensures that no assumptions are made and that everyone knows what is welcome and what is off limits. Far from spoiling the mood, negotiation deepens connection because both people know their voices matter. The fourth fact is that setting limits is an essential part of this negotiation. Limits may be hard, meaning never acceptable, or soft, meaning under certain conditions they might be considered. Acknowledging limits allows people to feel safe enough to explore without fear of crossing boundaries. This practice highlights that intimacy does not have to mean complete openness to everything. In fact, it thrives on the clarity of what is wanted and what is not. The fifth fact is that safe words provide a simple but powerful safety tool. A predetermined word, often something easy to remember but unlikely to be said accidentally, can immediately pause or stop activity. The existence of a safe word ensures that even in situations involving play acting, communication remains clear. Safe words are not signs of weakness or failure. They are signals of respect and control, proving that consent can be withdrawn at any moment. The sixth fact is that aftercare is considered essential in many kink practices. Aftercare refers to the emotional and physical support that follows an intense scene. This might include reassurance, hydration, quiet conversation, or simply presence. The goal is to help everyone return to emotional balance, ensuring that the experience feels safe from start to finish. Research on intimacy shows that aftercare reduces stress responses and strengthens trust, making it an important part of the process rather than an optional extra. The seventh fact is that stigma still surrounds kink, despite the emphasis on safety and consent. Media often portrays it as deviant or extreme, reinforcing stereotypes that discourage honest conversation. In reality, surveys suggest that many people have some form of interest in kink or power play, whether light or more developed. Recognizing this normality reduces shame and encourages people to be more open about their desires and boundaries. Dispelling stigma also makes it easier for individuals to practice safely, since silence often leaves them without guidance or education. The eighth fact is that kink intersects with psychology in ways that are not inherently pathological. For much of the 20th century, medical literature framed kink as illness, but modern research shows that consensual kink can be part of healthy sexuality. In fact, people involved in kink communities often report above-average levels of communication and negotiation in their relationships. This suggests that rather than being destructive, kink can encourage skills that improve trust and respect. The ninth fact is that kink highlights the importance of risk awareness. All intimacy carries some degree of risk, whether physical or emotional. What distinguishes kink is the practice of acknowledging those risks openly before proceeding. For example, participants may discuss safety measures, safe words, or medical conditions beforehand. By being risk-aware, people can enjoy exploration without ignoring responsibility. This contrasts with casual or uninformed encounters where risks are often overlooked. The 10th fact is that inclusivity is a growing value in kink communities. Language is evolving to be stigma-free, recognizing that everyone's desires and identities are valid. This includes respecting gender identity, orientation, and body diversity. Inclusive language avoids shaming, instead creating an environment where participants feel safe to express themselves without fear of ridicule. Inclusivity reflects a broader cultural shift toward acceptance and respect. The 11th fact is that kink practices highlight the difference between fantasy and reality. Many people enjoy role play or imagination that does not reflect their daily values or behaviors. Recognizing this difference allows people to explore safely without confusing fantasy with actual desire for harm or inequality. This boundary between fantasy and real life is protected by consent frameworks, making kink less about danger and more about controlled imagination. The 12th fact is that confidentiality and privacy are deeply respected in many kink communities. Just as with sexual health or personal relationships, participants value discretion. Sharing details without permission is considered a violation of trust. This emphasis on privacy demonstrates that kink, far from being careless, prioritizes careful stewardship of personal boundaries. Respect for confidentiality builds a culture of trust that extends beyond individual experiences. The 13th fact is that kink, when practiced with care, often strengthens relationships. Because it requires communication, negotiation, and aftercare, partners build habits of listening and supporting one another. These habits can spill into other areas of the relationship, improving emotional closeness and problem-solving. Far from being destructive, kink can become a tool for connection as long as respect and consent remain central. The 14th fact, the final reflection of this chapter, is that kink is not about breaking rules, but about rewriting them together. It allows people to define their own boundaries, create their own language of trust, and experience intimacy in ways that make sense to them. The emphasis on frameworks like SSC and RACK, on negotiation, on limits, and on aftercare, demonstrates that kink is not lawless. It is structured, intentional, and deeply rooted in communication. When viewed through this lens, kink becomes less about shock and more about collaboration, reminding us that consent and respect are the true cornerstones of intimacy in any form. And so this chapter closes with a gentle reassurance. Kink is neither strange nor unsafe when guided by awareness, compassion, and respect. It is simply one of many ways people explore intimacy, proof that human connection takes many forms. By centering safety, consent, and kindness, kink becomes not taboo, but testimony to the creativity and resilience of relationships. When we talk about sex, love, and connection, it can be easy to imagine that humanity invented everything. But in truth, nature has been running experiments for millions of years. The animal kingdom is full of extraordinary strategies for courtship, bonding, cooperation, and reproduction. These are not stories of scandal, but of survival, creativity, and diversity. By looking at how animals approach attraction and partnership, we gain a playful yet profound window into the deeper forces that have shaped our own biology and culture. Nature's playbook, written over countless generations, offers both curious details and enduring lessons. The first fact is that courtship is one of nature's most universal rituals. Birds sing elaborate songs, insects perform precise dances, and fish flash bright colors, all in hopes of attracting a partner. These displays are not random. They are shaped by sexual selection, where individuals who attract mates successfully pass on their genes. The peacock's shimmering tail is a classic example, evolved not for camouflage or survival, but for beauty, signaling health and vitality. Courtship rituals remind us that attraction is about communication, signaling qualities that matter for survival and partnership. The second fact is that cooperation plays a major role in reproduction across species. Emperor penguins in Antarctica endure brutal winters by huddling together, taking turns on the outer edges of the group, while one parent balances a fragile egg on its feet. Wolves work as a pack to feed pups, with older siblings bringing food back for younger ones. Even tiny fish like clownfish share duties when caring for their eggs. Nature shows again and again that successful reproduction is rarely a solo act. It depends on cooperation, partnership, and shared effort. The third fact is that pair bonds are far more common in the animal kingdom than many realize. While some species follow solitary paths, others form long-term bonds that last for life. Swans and albatrosses are famous for lifelong partnerships, returning to the same mate each season with displays of loyalty and recognition. Prairie voles, small rodents, also form lasting bonds, sharing nests and grooming each other. These examples show that intimacy and companionship are not uniquely human traits, but strategies nature has favored in many contexts. The fourth fact is that not all strategies revolve around pairs. In some species, like bonobos, intimacy is part of social glue, helping resolve conflicts, reduce stress, and strengthen bonds across the group. Instead of focusing on exclusivity, bonobos use intimacy as cooperation, showing that sex can be about peacekeeping as much as reproduction. Their example challenges the idea that there is only one natural way to organize relationships. Nature, in fact, thrives on variation. The fifth fact is that sexual dimorphism, the physical differences between males and females, often arises from evolutionary pressures around attraction. In many bird species, males are brighter and flashier, while females are camouflaged for protection while nesting. In mammals like deer, males grow antlers, not just for defense, but as visual displays in courtship competitions. These traits tell evolutionary stories. Beauty, size, or strength can become signals of survival value, guiding mate choice across generations. The sixth fact is that competition for mates has led to some of the most dramatic behaviors in the natural world. Male bighorn sheep clash with thunderous headbutts for access to females. Birds of paradise perform intricate dances, clearing display courts in the forest where they leap, hop, and spread wings in dazzling patterns. These competitions are costly in energy and sometimes dangerous, yet they endure because they increase reproductive success. Evolution shows that the drive for connection fuels both cooperation and competition in fascinating ways. The seventh fact is that parental strategies vary widely across species. Some parents invest heavily, like elephants, whose young rely on the herd for years before independence. Others, like sea turtles, lay dozens of eggs and leave them to hatch on their own. In frogs, males may carry tadpoles on their backs, while in seahorses, males themselves become the pregnant parent, carrying fertilized eggs in special pouches until they hatch. This variety proves that there is no single model for raising the next generation. The eighth fact is that evolution also experiments with flexibility in roles. In some bird species, such as jacanas, females are larger and more dominant, defending territories while males care for the eggs. In certain fish, individuals can change sex depending on social conditions, ensuring that reproduction continues smoothly. These adaptations highlight how diverse and creative nature is when it comes to ensuring survival. The rigidity humans often impose around roles is not always mirrored in the wild. The ninth fact is that monogamy, while rare overall, has evolved independently in multiple species. Scientists believe it often arises when offspring need significant care to survive, making cooperation between two parents the most efficient strategy. From wolves to beavers to certain birds, monogamous bonds demonstrate that loyalty and shared effort can be powerful evolutionary tools. While not the dominant strategy across all life, it is one of nature's recurring solutions. The 10th fact is that play itself is often part of courtship and bonding. Young animals practice with mock chases, gentle wrestling, and playful displays that later become adult rituals. Dolphins are especially known for their playfulness, which includes games of catch with objects or synchronized swimming displays. Play strengthens social ties, teaches skills, and reduces tension, blending joy with survival. Humans are not alone in discovering that play is essential to connection. The 11th fact is that evolution favors diversity because different environments demand different strategies. In the harsh Arctic, animals may reproduce quickly in short windows of abundance. In tropical environments with stable resources, slower reproductive patterns are possible. The result is a dazzling array of strategies, each shaped by the pressures of climate, food, and predators. Evolution shows that there is no single correct way to approach intimacy, only approaches that fit specific challenges. The 12th fact is that bonding behaviors often go far beyond reproduction. Grooming, singing, synchronized movement, and shared nests all serve to strengthen ties that support group survival. Gibbons, for example, sing duets that reinforce their partnership. Penguins exchange ritualized calls that identify each other among thousands. These behaviors remind us that bonding is not only about reproduction. It is about maintaining cooperation in the face of life's uncertainties. The 13th fact is that even in species without lifelong pairs, loyalty and recognition play roles. Elephants mourn lost companions. Certain birds remember mates across seasons, reuniting after migrations that span continents. Whales and dolphins form pods that rely on trust and recognition to hunt and travel. These behaviors show that memory, emotion, and recognition are not exclusive to humanity, but part of a broader animal story. The 14th fact, the final reflection of this chapter, is that nature's playbook is written with flexibility, creativity, and resilience. From cooperative parenting to dazzling courtship, from monogamous bonds to fluid social groups, evolution has crafted countless strategies to meet the challenge of survival. By looking at animals, we see reflections of our own complexity, not in exact parallels, but in echoes that remind us that connection, care, and partnership are as old as life itself. What nature teaches is that love and reproduction are not one path but many, and that diversity itself is the key to survival. And so this chapter rests with a gentle reminder that intimacy is not uniquely human, but part of the fabric of life on Earth. Courtship dances in forests, songs across oceans, and bonds formed under harsh skies all tell the same story. Life endures through connection. When we see ourselves as part of this larger story, the lessons of nature can inspire humility, wonder, and a deeper respect for the many ways life has learned to love.